brief so that I put the link on the group.
Oh, I just did. You can share that link.
How many NRIs are living there? And then it's just refused to ask us the rest of the
ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ವಿನಯ್ ಶ್ರೀನಿವಾಸ್ ಅಂತ. ನಾನು ಅಡ್ವೊಕೇಟ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಬಹುತ್ವ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಸದಸ್ಯನಾಗಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ಈ ಚರ್ಚೆಗೆ ಬಂದಿರೋ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. Good morning to all and thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning for this discussion. I request everybody to please put their phones on silent as we start the discussion. And before I set the context, I'll just request the speakers also to come. Narayana sir, Sunandamma ma'am, Prof sir, Anisha, everyone ವೇದಿಕೆಗೆ ಬನ್ನಿ. ನಂತರ ಪರಿಚಯ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ಸ್. ನಾವು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾತಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ನಾನು ಸಂಕ್ಷಿಪ್ತವಾಗಿ You can speak bilingually also, or you can speak only in Kannada. Okay. ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ತಿಳಿದಿರೋ ಹಾಗೆ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ, ಆರ್ಥಿಕ, ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಒಂದು ಎಷ್ಟು ಮುಗಿತಾ ಇದೆ. ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮುಗಿತಿರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಸುತ್ತಲೂ ಹಲವಾರು ಕಾಂಟ್ರವರ್ಸಿಗಳಾಗಿದ್ದಾವೆ. ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ತಡಿಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬಹಳ ಜನ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಹೋದ್ರು. ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಿದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ದಿಗ್ಗಜರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕಾರಣಗಳಿಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. The survey, the socio-educational economic survey, which is just about to get completed, has attracted a lot of needless controversy. And there have been many people who are saying we will not participate. There are many people who objected to many things. People have gone to court to try and stop the survey. But the survey itself is a very important exercise which is being undertaken. And from Bahutva Karnataka, we felt that it's important to have this discussion as to why this survey is important, so that we ourselves are also clear. And also, after the survey is completed, how will we ensure that the report is implemented? ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಒಂದು ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ, ಬಟ್ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಗಮನ ಕೊಡದೇ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಇಷ್ಟು ದಿವಸ ಸುಮಾರು ಜನ ನಾವು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ, ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಗಮನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದದ್ದು. ಈ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಜಾಪ್ರಭುತ್ವದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂವಿಧಾನದ ಆಶಯ, ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಸಂವಿಧಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಸ್ಥಾನಮಾನ ಮತ್ತು ಅವಕಾಶಗಳ ಸಮಾನತೆ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಗುರಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಮುಖ್ಯ. One of our constitutional goals is equality of status and opportunity, and if we need to achieve it in a large, diverse country like us, we need data. And this Samiksha or this survey is only a tool or step towards that. And the reason why there is also so much confusion is because the government has not been proactive in its communication about the survey, why the survey is being done, what are the aims of the survey, etc. So much so that people are confused whether this is survey or census.
Correct.
Much more. But I will leave it to the speakers because we have 4 distinguished speakers with us. ನಾನು ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೇನೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾಷಣಕಾರರಿಗೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾತಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಭಾಷಣಕಾರರನ್ನ ಪರಿಚಯ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ. ನಾರಾಯಣ ಸರ್ ಅವರು ಅಜೀಂ ಪ್ರೇಮ್ಜಿ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರು ರೈಟರ್, ಕಾಲಮ್ನಿಸ್ಟ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಒಂದು ರೀತಿ ಸ್ಕಾಲರ್ಲಿ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂತ ಸಹ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು. ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಒಂದು ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಬರೀತಾರೆ, ಅರಿವು ಮೂಡಿಸ್ತಾರೆ ಜನಗಳಿಗೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಅವ್ರ ಕೆಲಸ ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಸುನಂದಮ್ಮ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರು ಫಾರ್ಮರ್ HOD ವುಮೆನ್ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ವುಮೆನ್ಸ್ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ. ಅದರ ಜೊತೆ ಸುನಂದಮ್ಮ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಸಹ ಹೋರಾಟಗಾರರು, ಬರಹಗಾರರು ಸಹ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಒಂದು ಮುಖ್ಯ ಚಿಂತಕರು ಸಹ. ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಅಜರ್ ಅವರು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಅಜರ್ ಅವರು ಐಸೆಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ PhD ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. His PhD is on state policies with respect to minorities, and he is also teaching at a private university right now. And it was especially important to also have him because the survey is not for backward castes, but this survey is about backward classes, which also includes minorities, and it's important to discuss the question of minorities as well. And we also have with us Anisha Sheth, who is the Karnataka Bureau Chief of the University, and who also been covering the whole survey extensively. 2015 ಸರ್ವೇದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳಾದವು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾರು ತಿರಸ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಹೇಗೆ ತಿರಸ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಬಹಳ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕನ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಂದ ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆ ಕೊಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅನಿಶಾ ಶೇಖರ್ ಅವರು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಯಾಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ನಾನು ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಪ್ಯಾನಲಿಸ್ಟ್ಗಳಿಗೆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ರೌಂಡಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು 8 ರಿಂದ ನಿಮಿಷ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಅದ್ರ ನಂತರ ಒಂದು ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ರೌಂಡ್ ಬ್ರೀಫ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು 4 minutes ಮಾತಾಡಿ ನಂತರ ವಿಲ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸ್. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿದ್ದಾವೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನನ್ನ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳು ಲಿಮಿಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಓಪನ್ ಅಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ನಾವು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ತಡವಾಗಿ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ, ಬಟ್ ಆದಷ್ಟು 1 ಗಂಟೆ 1:10 ಒಳಗಡೆ ಮುಗಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎವ್ರಿಬಡಿ ಟು ಸ್ಟೇ ವಿತ್ ಅಸ್ ಟು ದ ಡಿಸ್ಕಷನ್ ಟಿಲ್ ದಿ ಎಂಡ್. ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ನಾರಾಯಣ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಮೊದಲನೇ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಯ ಮತ್ತೆ ಈ ಗೊಂದಲಗಳ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆ ಏನು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಆಯಿತು? 2015 ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಕ್ಕಾಗ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ವಾ? ಈಗ ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಒಂದು ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೇನೆ. ನಂತರ 2015 ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾನು ಸುನಂದಮ್ಮ ಮೇಡಮ್. Yeah, I was just asking Dr. Narayana as to why the 2015 survey was rejected, while we were doing on 2025 survey, and the political and the social background of the whole controversies surrounding the survey itself.
Okay, thanks, Sunny. So, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this discussion. And I was wondering all the while why this kind of discussions are not taking place about an important exercise that's going on. So, thanks to Bahutva Karnataka for organizing this. I know I have been invited here as a professor, but let me voluntarily relinquish that status, and I will speak more as a politician or political activist. At least I make two political statements right in the beginning about what's going on. It may sound a bit outlandish, but I think some kind of outlandish statements are required because of the kind of atmosphere that we will now in Karnataka around this exercise. First of all, I have never seen a state-sponsored simple data collection exercise resisted so much, being resisted so much. So much in the sense that there is an unholy nexus of caste organizations, apartment owners association, and WhatsApp, right? Carrying out some kind of verification campaign against Karnataka education of social and education survey 2025, or second survey which is being studied in Karnataka. What is the resistance? Of course, caste associations have given open call not to participate in it, and that has been further communicated to members of apartment associations through the association group. You might have received such messages. I don't know, any of you might have received. And generally people do not know the background, and therefore they think that something dangerous is going on, therefore we should not participate. Especially when your association communicates to you that you should not participate in it. And the tendency is, to play safe, right? So this is going on. And then, when the enumerators went to houses for enumeration, right? I think people slammed the door on them, right? Yeah. And some of them have been even asked questions, and some of them asked, "Why are you here?" So you are unwelcome. Just get lost. This is the kind of message that was given to the enumerators in many houses. So I am wondering, this is the outlandish proposal that I have. Therefore, I think for the future of the surveys, because according to the law, the government of Karnataka and every state government in this country will have to carry out this exercise every 10 years, just like census operations. Right? What is the law which requires this to be done? I'll say later. So for the future such operations, my proposal is that we should not involve teachers and municipal workers, because they can be shouted at very easily. So now my argument is that we have to use district armed police, okay, for this exercise, because anyway they don't have any work during the peace time. So they are at least graduates and 12 pass, etc. They can be trained properly, and they can be sent directly, or they can accompany the teachers in the future. So this is the first political statement that I want to make. And Second political statement that I would like to make, which is, this is an exercise to see whether development in this country has a social phase, whether there are caste-based patterns to development. Right? So this is the ultimate objective of carrying out this exercise. Now, the interesting thing is that this has created a caste system of its own, okay, a varnashram system of its own. And what is that? In people's mind today, we have three varnas. In Indian society, we have chaturvarna, right? So the people have organized the government system into three varnas, where the union government is the Brahmin, Kshatriya and Vaishya combined, and the state government is Shudra, and the local government is Panchama, Rati Shudra, or SC. So this is the way the people are operating. What is this? Why am I saying what I am saying? Now, if central government or the union government undertakes an exercise of this nature, people have no objection, people have no problem in participating in it, right? They willingly participate. And if the state government is doing the same thing, they have a problem. I don't understand why. Because in our hierarchical ordering of the government, right? So the union government should be obeyed, but not the state government. The state government can be defied. So this kind of defiance that I see is not something that they are willing to do in the case of union government dictates. The union government says that you beat players to chase corona, and they are willing to do that, right? But the state government says that please participate in a meaningful exercise of this sort, which they are not ready. So in their imagination, and if it is by the local government, even the problem is even more. So I think we have divided our own hierarchy for the government as well, and this is against the Indian Constitution. So the Constitution, while distributing the sovereign authority in this country, right? Both the union government and state governments are sovereign authorities, and the state government is also a sovereign entity. And within the sphere of its operation, it is sovereign. And therefore, the state government can also ask the people to give certain kind of information which they are liable to give. And now, only possibly the only reason why this kind of defense could be shown openly is that there is no law which binds them to give this kind of information. And I don't know whether in the case of census there is a binding law which is binding. So I think it's high time that state governments across the country come out with their law which will make it binding for the people to participate in this kind of welfare entry. Now this is not for regulation, right? So when the state tries to regulate, the resistance can be understood. But when the state tries to undertake an exercise of this kind, it is simply a data collection exercise. Now if you are not willing to, you don't have to part with your Azhar card number. Which is a problem that the Commission has created. I don't know why. Let us not get into that. But otherwise, to pass a certain kind of information, which the state anyway knows. If the state wants to know something about it, then the state has all the means to collect it, right? So this is to organize the information which is already known to the state in a way. So evidently the kind of resistance is irrational and it is political. So these are the first two things that I wanted to say. I don't know how many minutes I am left with the time that I have been given. So now let me give you some kind of background. What is going on? One question that was asked was whether it is a census or a survey. Professor Deshpande is here. Professor Rajendran is here. So correct me if I am wrong. So in methodological language. A census is one which covers the entire population, right? Yeah. A survey is done by taking a sample out of it. Now the paradox is that it is called a survey, but the scale is of a census. If you would like to cover everything. So there is a little bit of a naming problem there. But in the name of survey, I think what is going on is a kind of census of a census in the sense. They cover the entire population, and there is a reason for covering the entire population. The question that comes in the mind of people is this: why is everyone in the population covered when the objective is to collect data about the OBCs? Now that is the problem. So the problem is that the OBCs are an indistinct group. And therefore, in order to understand their relative backwardness, you have to see how much they are backward in relation to other sections. And therefore, by default, in order to gauge the depth of the backwardness of the so-called OBCs, you need to collect data about area. That is the reason possibly why the government wanted to do it the way it is doing currently. Now, what is the genesis of this? We have to understand a little bit of Indian society in order to understand why this is right? So we have this pyramidal structure of Indian society. We have Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, right? And then below that we have SCSTs or scheduled castes. Now, in the constitution, the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes are identified, and they have been given a set of measures for uplifting them, which includes both positive discrimination and post of welfare measures. So, insofar as their identification is concerned, there is no problem. But above that is the fourth varna, the Shudra. There, if you imagine a pyramid and SCSTs are below here, and just above the SCST, right? Those who are modeling the SCST, but they are part of the fourth varna, the Shudra, right? And they were considered to be sometimes socially, educationally, and economically as backward, as disadvantageous as SCSTs were. But the constitution does not extend any distinct measures for their uplift, except providing certain enabling laws. Right? And so, after independence, therefore, the first attempt was made to identify them in order for them to get something on par with SCST, right? By constituting a commission called Tata Sahib Kalekar Commission, the first OBC commission set up at the Central Government. This commission gives its report.
When was this?
This was 53, and the report was, if I am not mistaken, was 58 or 56. 55, yeah. It was clear. Now, very interesting thing about this commission's report was that Tata Sahib Kalekar himself disagreed with the report. He said that I submit the report, but I am not in agreement with this report because his objection was that caste was to be the basis for identification of backwardness. He did not agree with this principle. Therefore, he said that I don't agree with the report, but I am submitting it. You do whatever you want. Then the government decided that anyway, they found some other problems, and therefore, in the end, they rejected the report. So the first backward class commission, which the report of which should have been the basis for identifying this group of population for the purpose of positive discrimination and other welfare measures, went like this. And the second commission was set up when the first non-Congress government came to power. The year was 1978. In the year 1978, the second commission, because the first commission report was rejected, the second commission was set up in 1978. This was the so-called the famous Mandal Commission, BK Mandal Commission. Mandal Commission gave its report in 1980. But before the report could have been looked into, the second non-Congress government was out of power. Indira Gandhi came back to power, and naturally did not take much interest because the commission was set up by the non-Congress government, Janata Party. And later, Rajiv Gandhi also did not take much interest, and Rajiv Gandhi's statement about OBC was actually insane. Let me not get into that. And later, when the second non-Congress government came to power in the year 1989, under BPC, a year later, in 1990, he decided to implement the Mandal Commission, which recommended 27% reservation to OBC. And then all hell broke loose. Youngsters all over the country, especially in northern India, they went on a rampage. They started promoting themselves, protesting against the recommendations to be implemented. So they said that the merit is going for a top in this country, and we cannot entertain, we cannot tolerate this kind of extension of reservation, and OBCs don't deserve it, and now merit will be sacrificed. So we are not going to accept it. And the situation became unmanageable, and then somebody went to the court, and this is what happens, right? When the matter goes out of control, either the government sets up a committee to look into it, or somebody takes the matter to the court. And in this case, somebody went to the court, and the court said, okay, now status quo, don't implement it, we'll look into the matter. And the court did look into the matter, a 9-judge bench, a constitutional bench, went into the matter, and it gave judgment in November 1993, if I remember. 22 November, yeah. 16th November 1992, if I remember correctly. And by majority, this the constitutional bench said 27% reservation for OBCs is valid, constitutionally valid. It should be given. But and they reiterated one previous stand of the Supreme Court, which is that the total reservation given to all the sections should not exceed 50%. A third important part of that judgment is that from then on, because till then the OBC commissions were constituted from time to time, but there was no permanent OBC commission. And the Supreme Court said from now on there shall be a permanent backward classes commission at the union level, and then state level permanent backward classes commission in all states. Right? And what would this backward classes commission do? And this would examine or assess the backwardness of this section of population from time to time, and decide which section should continue as OBCs or backward classes, which section or which caste should be removed from the list if they have if there is an upward mobility in that case, and then in case certain castes deserve to be included, if they have been left out for some reason, then they should be included. So all the three decisions are to be taken based on the recommendation of this commission. And this commission will be a permanent commission both at the state level and at the union level, and they will carry out from time to time the second thing called a survey to generate objective data, because the court's contention then was that these sections do require, because some of them are as the condition of some of these sections is as bad as the condition of SC/ST. But in order to extend some welfare measures and positive discrimination, we need objective data. And objective data cannot be imagined, it should be generated. And generation of this data should have an institutional mechanism, and that institutional mechanism has been provided through the permanent backward classes commission. And later, when Karnataka accordingly passed an act of the legislature in 1995 based on the Supreme Court judgment called Karnataka Permanent Backward Classes Commission 1995. This is the act. And the act specified that the commission would undertake this survey, and based on the results of the survey, the OBC list will be revised every 10 years. So by default, this survey will have to be undertaken every 10 years. Now, the Karnataka passed this legislation in the year 1995, and a year before that, in 1994, a list of the OBCs was prepared. Now, if you go by the act, two things could have been done. Yeah. So, two things could have been done. One, immediately the Karnataka government would have undertaken a survey to revise the list because a new law has come. Or it would have taken the stand that in 1994 the previous list was prepared, and therefore the next survey should have been conducted in the year 2004. Okay, because 10 years. So in the year 2004, an initiative was indeed undertaken, or initiated. Okay, so this survey was initiated, but it was not taken to completion. And then in 2014, they started the survey again. And this time the survey was completed. And the survey was completed in 2018. Before the report could have been submitted to the government, the then government, saying Sunandamma was the chief minister then, his first term between 2013 and 2018. So 2014 the survey started, in 2018 the survey was completed, and 2018 was also the last year of his first term. And just before the election, the survey report was ready, and there are different interpretations about it, why it was not submitted. Now the official line was that the report was not ready before the election. Therefore, they were about to submit it. By then the elections were announced, and therefore they were not submitted. Okay. And the government that came.
the year 2018 was the election year. Yeah. So after the 2018 election, we had a coalition government. The Congress was part of the coalition, but the chief minister was from India. He did not show any interest in this report. And then the coalition government was toppled, and the BJP government came into power, and they did not show any interest in it. So the report was kept pending till the year 2023. In 2023, again you had another Congress government headed by the same chief minister, and by then, for various reasons which will take a lot of time for me to explain, it took one more year for the commission to submit the final report, and the report was submitted in 2024. And after a little bit of delay, the government, the cabinet decided that we are going to accept the report. Report in the sense the findings and the report prepared based on the findings of the survey.
The
And
2014, sir.
2014 survey, you are right. 2014 survey completed in 2018, submitted in 2024, in 2025 when they wanted to, accept it, and then implement the report based on the findings of the survey. Again, there was a lot of opposition from the upper caste. And this upper caste opposition to this kind of an exercise was not new. But this time, the government was on a bit of weak wicket here to defend the survey because it was already 10 years delayed. Okay, the law itself demands that the survey should be conducted every 10 years. Now, by the time the previous report was before the government, it was, there was a delay of 10 years. So the government was not in a very strong position to defend the acceptance of the survey. That's one. Second, many people started saying that, look here, 10 years ago, people, no enumerators came to my house, and therefore this survey was incomplete, it was unscientific. We do not know how the survey was conducted. We have forgotten about it. So this finding should not be considered valid at this point in time. Again, the government was not in a position to defend. Of course, with a lot of political will, they would have defended, but the government. Objectively speaking, the government was not in a very strong position to defend it because some exercise undertaken 10 years ago, if the government were to say that, okay, we did visit your house, here are your documents or data. I don't know whether the data was maintained during that time so meticulously, whether the government would have done an exercise of inviting all the suspects to an office and show them the records, etc. I don't know. So the government had to, in a way, was forced and had to. Okay, both. It had to, objectively speaking, and it was forced to announce a new survey. And the new survey, anyway due under the law, in the year 2024, was announced in the year 2025. And that's the survey or census operation which is going on now. Now, this is a caste-based survey. Okay, it's not caste census, it's a caste-based socio-economic survey. Now, why it's a caste-based socio-economic survey? The enumeration of caste is a must here because the objective is to understand whether development in this state and this country has a social phase. And the assumption is that it has, but then we need to generate statistics to prove it. That's number one. Second, only Karnataka has taken this mandal judgment, provision that the OBC commission should undertake this survey from time to time. Only Karnataka has taken it seriously. All other states have set up the OBC commission. That OBC commission has received petitions from various OBC castes for inclusion or exclusion. That exercise they do, but they have not undertaken a survey. Now, in the meantime, after Karnataka did the 2014 survey, two other states conducted the surveys, caste-based surveys. Telangana and Bihar, but both of them did not undertake it through the OBC commission. They got it done through the state statistics and planning department. So it was considered as a government-sponsored survey, not an OBC commission-sponsored survey. Now, the OBC commission is a constitutional body. Okay, it's not just even a statutory body; it's a constitutional body. Despite that, because the survey is undertaken through the OBC commission. Some people are now claiming that this is a survey of OBC, so why should we give information? This is something to do with the OBC. And here there is a bit of lacuna on the part of the government as well, on the part of the commission as well. both the commission and the government should have carried out a publicity campaign beforehand, convincing the people that this is harmless, this is an exercise long overdue, and this is an exercise meant to generate data, and this data is useful for taking up welfare measures from the poor, not only for OBCs, although OBCs are going to be the primary beneficiaries, because in their case, a lot of measures have been ad hoc in the absence of objective data. So this is where we stand.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ನಾರಾಯಣ ಸರ್. ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಸಂಕ್ಷಿಪ್ತವಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ. ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಅಂಶಗಳನ್ನ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ಬ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಆಗಿ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ, ಒಬ್ಬ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಹೋರಾಟಗಾರನಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಕೆಲವು ಅಂಶಗಳನ್ನ ಹೇಳಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ. ಆ ಒಂದು ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋ ಒಂದು ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಗೆ, ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರೋ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಗೆ ಬೇರೆ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ಇಷ್ಟು ಒಂದು ವಿರೋಧ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ಇಷ್ಟು ವಿರೋಧ ಬಂದಿರೋದು ಜಾತಿ ಸಂಘಟನೆಗಳಿಂದ, ಅಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಷನ್ಗಳಿಂದ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ಮುಂದಿನ ಸಲ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ರೆ ಒಳ್ಳೇದು, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಬೈತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಮನೆ ಆಚೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಆರ್ಮ್ ರಿಸರ್ವ್ ಪೊಲೀಸ್ನ ಕಳ್ಸೋಣ ಅಂತ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಆಗಿರೋದು ಅದು ಜಾತಿವಾರ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಆಗಿದೆಯಾ, ಅಥವಾ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಜಾತಿ ವೈಸ್ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಪ್ಯಾಟರ್ನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆಯಾ ಅದನ್ನ ಗಮನಿಸಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಜಾತಿವಾರ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಸಹ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವರು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಅಂಶ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋ ವರ್ಣಾಶ್ರಮ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ನಾವು ಒಕ್ಕೂಟ ಸರ್ಕಾರ, ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರ, ಸ್ಥಳೀಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರನೇ ಜಾತಿವಾರ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೀವಿ. ಒಕ್ಕೂಟ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಯಾರು ಅಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರಗಳು ಏನಾದ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಅಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ ತರನು ಬಂದಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ನಂತರ ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆ ಕೊಡ್ತವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂವಿಧಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಪರಿಶಿಷ್ಟ ಜಾತಿ ಮತ್ತು ಪಂಗಡಗಳಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ನಿರ್ದಿಷ್ಟವಾದ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ ಇದೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವ್ರ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳು ಸಹ ಇದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಶೂದ್ರ ಸಮುದಾಯ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ಗೆ ಆ ರೀತಿ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳು ಇರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಬಂದ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲೇ ಮೊದಲೇ ಒಂದು ಆಯೋಗ ರಚನೆ ಆಗಿತ್ತು, ಹಿಂದುಳಿದ ವರ್ಗಗಳ ಆಯೋಗ, ಕಾಕಾ ಸಾಹೇಬ್ ಕಾಲೇಕರ್ ಅವರ ನೇತೃತ್ವದಲ್ಲಿ. ಆ ಒಂದು ಅವ್ರು ವರದಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಆದ್ರೆ ವರದಿನ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಸ್ವೀಕರಿಸಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಂತರ 1978 ಅಲ್ಲಿ BP ಮಂಡಲ್ ಅವ್ರ ವರದಿ ಬಂತು. ಆ ವರದಿ ಬಂತು, ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಜನತಾ ಪಾರ್ಟಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಒಂದು ವರದಿ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಅದನ್ನ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. BP ಸಿಂಗ್ ಅವ್ರು ಬರೋದಂತ ಅದನ್ನ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಮತ್ತೆ 1992 ನಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ OBC 91 ಆಮೇಲೆ ಜಡ್ಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ 27% ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಒಂದು ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಸೇರಿಸಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಗಮನಿಸಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು, ಮಂಡಲ್ ಕಮಿಟಿ ಬಂದಾಗಲೇ ಅವರು ಕಮಟಲ್ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ 92 ನಲ್ಲೇ ಬಾಬ್ರಿ ಮಸೀದ್ ಡೆಮಾಲಿಷನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದು, ಆ ಒಂದು ಅಂಶ ನಾವು ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಸೇರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬಟ್ ಆ ತೀರ್ಪು ಬಂದಾಗ, ಇಂದ್ರಾಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಜಡ್ಜ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬಂದಾಗ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ ಒಂದು ಕಲ್ಯಾಣಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಶಾಶ್ವತ ಆಯೋಗ ರಚನೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಆ ಶಾಶ್ವತ ಆಯೋಗ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಯಾವ ಸಮುದಾಯಗಳು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳ ರೂಪಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಒಂದು ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ತುಂಬಾ ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಆ ನಿಟ್ಟಿನಲ್ಲೇ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಒಂದು ಕಾನೂನು ಸಹ ತಂತು, ಒಂದು ಶಾಶ್ವತ ಹಿಂದುಳಿದ ಆಯೋಗ ಒಂದು ಕಾನೂನು ತಗೊಂಡು ಬಂದು ಆ ಆಯೋಗ ರಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ, ಆ ಆಯೋಗದಿಂದ 2 ಸತಿ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. 2004 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಅದನ್ನ ಮುಗಿಸಿಲ್ಲ. 2014 ನಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿದ್ದರಾಮಯ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಇರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಆ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಅದು 2018 ಮುಗಿತು, ವರದಿ ಬಂತು. ಬಟ್ ಆಗಾನೆ ಚುನಾವಣೆ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಆಗ ಒಂದು ವರದಿನ ಸ್ವೀಕಾರ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ನಂತರ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಬಿಜೆಪಿ JDS ಕೋಲಿಷನ್ ಸ್ವೀಕಾರ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಿಜೆಪಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತೂ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಗಮನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ಈ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಬಂದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಆ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ನ ಸ್ವೀಕಾರ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಜಾರಿ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬಾ ವಿರೋಧ ಇತ್ತು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೂ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಷ್ಟ ಇದೆ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ 10 ವರ್ಷ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡಿ. ಸುಮಾರು ಜನ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು 10 ವರ್ಷ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ, ಈಗ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ. ಇನ್ನು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಜನ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ನಮ್ಮ ಮನೆಗೆ ಯಾರು ಬಂದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಅಪೋಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಹತ್ರ ಒಂದು ಡೇಟಾನು ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೂ ಒಂಥರ ಕಷ್ಟ ಇತ್ತು ಆ ಒಂದು ವರದಿನೇ ಜಾರಿ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ 2015 ಮತ್ತೆ ಒಂದು ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಯ್ತು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಇಷ್ಟು ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆ ಅವರು ತುಂಬಾ ವಿವರವಾಗಿ, ತುಂಬಾ ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ನಾರಾಯಣ ಸರ್, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟ ವಿವರಣೆಗೆ. ಈಗ ನಾವು ಸುನಂದಮ್ಮ ಮೇಡಮ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಸುನಂದಮ್ಮ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅವರು 2014 ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಏನ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಸ್ವೀಕಾರ ಮಾಡ್ತು, ಆ ಒಂದು ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಲೋಪದೋಷಗಳಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ನೆಸ್ ಯಾಕೆ ನಾವು ನೋಡೋದು ಮುಖ್ಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಸಹ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. Sunandamma madam will speak about the 2015 report and some of the issues with that report and the classification of backwardness.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನಾನು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ವಿನಯ್ ನಿಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ನನಗೆ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಕಂಫರ್ಟಬಲ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸರಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋ ನಂಬಿಕೆ. ನನ್ನದು 2018 ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮುಗಿದ ಅನಂತರದಲ್ಲಿ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಮತ್ತು ಸಿದ್ದರಾಮಯ್ಯ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ 2022 ಬಂದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅವರು ಆಯೋಗಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು, ನೀವು ಈ ವರದಿನ ಸಲ್ಲಿಸಿ ಹಳೆ ಡೇಟಾವನ್ನು ಬಳಸಿ ಹೊಸ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟನ್ನು ತಯಾರಿಸಿ ನಮಗೆ ಸಬ್ಮಿಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ವಿದಿನ್ ದ ಇಯರ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಥರ ಅವರು ಒಂದು ಲೆಟರ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಆಯೋಗಕ್ಕೆ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್. ಆವಾಗ ಜಯಪ್ರಕಾಶ್ ಹೆಗ್ಡೆ ಅವರು ಹಿಂದಿನ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟಲ್ಲಿ ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಆದಂಥ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ನ ಚೇರ್ಮನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದರು, ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರು. ಸೊ ಅವರು ಹಳೆ ಡೇಟನ್ನು ಬಳಸಿ ಒಂದು ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ರಿಪೋರ್ಟನ್ನು ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡಿ 24 ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಕೊಟ್ಟಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಏನಾಯ್ತು ಅಂದರೆ ಆ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾಕೆ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇದು ಭಾಳ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ನಾರಾಯಣ್ ಸರ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಸೇರಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು, ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಜನಗಣತಿ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಸ್ಟನ್ನ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಧರ್ಮ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ಮು, ಹೌಸ್ದು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್, ಅದರ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಇದುವರೆಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಳ್ಳದೇ ಇರೋ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕಾಗಿ 92 ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಹೋದಾಗ ಅದು ಸುಪ್ರೀಂ ಕೋರ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಏನು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೋ ಅವರು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನೀವು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿ ಅದ್ರ ಮೂಲಕ ನೀವು ಸೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. 27% ನಾಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸೀಡಿಂಗ್ 50 ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಬಂದಾದ ಮೇಲೆ ಶಾಶ್ವತ ಆಯೋಗವನ್ನು ತಯಾರಿಸಿದ್ರು. ಆ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸನ್ನ ಈಗ ಜನಸಂಖ್ಯೆಯ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಮೀಸಲಾತಿನ ನಾವು ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ಹುಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಬೇಕಾಗ, ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮನೆ ಸರ್ವೆಗಳು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಇವ್ರು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಂತೇ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಅನ್ನೇ ನಾವು ಸರ್ವೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಯಾರು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಂತ ಏನು ದಾಖಲೆ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೋ ಆ ದಾಖಲೆ ಆಧಾರವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕಾಗಿ 2015 ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ 1,35,35,772 1,35,35,772 houses are surveyed. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ 1,80,000 SCs ಅಂದರೆ 105 STs ನ ಅದರೊಳಗಡೆ ಇರೋದು ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಿದೆ. ಅದರ್ ದೆನ್ ಇದು 1,351 ಜಾತಿಗಳ ಮತ್ತು ಸಮುದಾಯಗಳು, 1,351 ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅದರ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ನ ಇವರು ಸರ್ವೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಹಾಗೂ 398 ಗುರುತಿಲ್ಲದ ಜಾತಿಗಳು. ದೇ ನೆವರ್ ಟೋಲ್ಡ್ ವಿ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ದಟ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್, ವಿಚ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ವಿ ಬಿಲಾಂಗ್ಸ್. Say 398 caste they told we don't know which caste we belongs. ಆಮೇಲೆ 1,94,003 ನಮಗೆ ಜಾತಿ ತಿಳಿದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಜಾತಿ ತಿಳಿದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರು ನಮಗೆ ಜಾತಿಯ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಯಾವ ಜಾತಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು 398. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು 1,94,003 ಜನ ನಮಗೆ ಯಾವ ಜಾತಿಗೆ ಸೇರ್ತೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದು ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಜಾತಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಸೇರಿಲ್ಲ, ವಿ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. ಅವರು 1,34,319 we won't belongs to any caste. Now we don't want to say belongs to this caste ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಅದನ್ನು ಇವರು ದಾಖಲು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ದಾಖಲು ಮಾಡಿದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಹೇಳೋದು ನಿರಾಕರಿಸಿದ್ರು. ಕೆಲವರು ಜಾತಿ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರು, ಕೆಲವರು ಜಾತಿ ಗೊತ್ತಿದ್ರು ನಾವು ಹೇಳಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರು, ಕೆಲವರು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಜಾತಿ ಇರೋದೇ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಸೊ ಇದು ಟೋಟಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ 80% ಆಫ್ ದ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ನ ಈ ಸರ್ವೆ ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ 80% ಆಫ್ ದ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ನ ಇದು ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ 100% ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಷ್ಟು ಸಂಖ್ಯೆಯನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು. ಕೊಟ್ಟಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಏನಾಯ್ತು, ಒಂದು ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ. ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಅವರು ಮಾಡಿದ ಆಧಾರಗಳೇನೆಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಗಾಗಲೇ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗಗಳಿತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ. ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 1, ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 2A, 3B, 3C, 3A ಆ ಥರ ಇತ್ತು. ಆ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗಗಳನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ದೇ ಡಿವೈಡೆಡ್ ಸಮ್ ಮೋರ್ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗಗಳು. ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 1A, ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 1B. ಸೊ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 1A ಗೆ 2 ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿತು. ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ A 1A ಅಂಡ್ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 2A. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 2A, ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 2B, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 3A, ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 3B. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನು ಕಾರಣ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗಾಗಲೇ ನಾರ್ತ್ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಲಿಂಗಾಯತರಲ್ಲಿ 2A ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಏನು ದೇ ಆರ್ ಲಿಂಗಾಯಟ್ಸ್ ಬಟ್ ದೇ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ ದಟ್ ಟು ಬಿ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್. ಸೊ ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ ಅನ್ನೋರು ಹಿಂದೂ ಗಾಡಿಗ, ಹಿಂದೂ ಬಳಿಜಿಗ ಅಂತ ಗಿವನ್ ದ ನೇಮ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಏನು ಯಾರು ತಾಲೂಕು ಆಫೀಸಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ ಅಂತಿದ್ದವರು ಹಿಂದೂ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಅವ್ರು ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರು. ಇದು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಏನು ಹಿಂದಿನ ರವಿವರ್ಮ ಕುಮಾರ್ ಅನಂತರ ಬೇರೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಬರ್ಕಿಂತ ಕಾತರಾಜ್ಗಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆನೆ 7 ಜನ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಧ್ಯಕ್ಷರಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರುಗಳೆಲ್ಲರೂ ನೋಟಿಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಈ ತರ ಕಂಪ್ಲೇಂಟ್ಸ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಬಂದಿತ್ತು. ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅವರು ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಫಾಲ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಕೆಲವು ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿಗಳ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಒಂದು ಹೋರಾಟ ನಡೆದು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ 2Aಗೆ ಸೇರಿಸಿ, ಲಿಂಗಾಯತರು 2Aಗೆ ಸೇರಿಸಿ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಅಂತ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 103 ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಮೊದಲೇ ಇತ್ತು. ಈ ಬಳಜಿಗರು ಗಾಣಿಗರು, ಹಿಂದೂ ಗಾಣಿಗರು, ಹಿಂದೂ ಬಳಜಿಗರೆಲ್ಲರೂ 2A ಇದ್ರು. ಸೊ ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ 3B ಇದ್ರು. ಸೊ ಅವ್ರೇನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಅಲ್ಲಿ 3B ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಇಫ್ ವಿ ಕಮ್ ಟು ದಟ್ 2A ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಚಾಯ್ಸ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಈ ತರ ಫೇಕ್ ಸರ್ಟಿಫಿಕೇಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾಳೆ ದಿನ ಯಾರೋ ಅಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಷನ್ ತೆಗೆದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ದೇ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಅಜಿಟೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ಧರ್ನಾಗಳು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಇದನ್ನ ನಮಗೆ ಸೇರಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಈಗೆಲ್ಲ ಹಿನ್ನೆಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸೊ ಈಗ ಮಾಡೋವಾಗ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಯಾರು ಇದಿತ್ತೋ ಅವಾಗ ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 1Aನ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 2 ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, 2A 3. ಸೊ ಹೀಗೆ ಡಿವಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಅರೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ರಿಅರೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಲೊಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಅನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಅನಂತರ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಅಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಬರ್ತಾ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 3A ಅಂಡ್ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 3B ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಲಿಂಗಾಯತರು ಮತ್ತು ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗರು ಬರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ಗಳಿಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಆರ್ ಮೋರ್ ದೆನ್ ದ ಕುರುಬಾಸ್, ಮೋರ್ ದೆನ್ ದ ಅದರ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಸ್ ಇರು. ಆದರೆ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ಇವರಿಗೆ 7% ಅಂಡ್ 8% ಆಯ್ತು. ಸೊ ಈ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 1Bಗೆ 12% ಆಯ್ತು. ಇದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ರಾಜಕೀಯಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾರಣ ಆಗಿತ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಪ್ರವರ್ಗ 1Bಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕುರುಬರಿದ್ರು. ಸಿದ್ದರಾಮಯ್ಯ ಬಿಲಾಂಗ್ಸ್ ಟು ದ ಕುರುಬ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾಕೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ 12% ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಮೇನ್ ಮಿಸ್ಟೇಕ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್. ಯಾಕೆ ನಾವು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರು ನಾರಾಯಣ್ ಸರ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು, ಮುಂದುವರಿದ ಜಾತಿಗಳನ್ನ ಏನು ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಮುಂದುವರೆದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಡಿಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಬಿಡಬಹುದು. ಯಾರಿಗೆ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕರೆ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ನೆಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ಸೊ ಈ ಅರ್ಥದಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಕೊಡುವಾಗ ಇವರು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ನೆಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಏನು ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಡೇಟಾ, ಆ ಡೇಟಾ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಅವರು ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಯಾಕೆ ಕುರುಬ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ 1Bಗೆ ನಾವು 12% ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಹೀಗೆ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ನೆಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಜಾಬ್ಸ್ ಹೇಗಿದೆ, ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ನೆಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಬೇರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಗೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಕೂಡ ಸಾಂಪ್ರದಾಯಿಕ ಉದ್ಯೋಗಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ತೊಡಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಡೇಟಾ ಇದೆ. ಬಟ್ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಅದನ್ನ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಒಂದು ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡುವಾಗ ಅವ್ರು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಅದನ್ನ ಈ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕಾಗಿ 7-8 ನಾವು ಯಾಕೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ, ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೂ ಅವರು ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಿತ್ತು. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಂಗಿದೆ, ಪಾಲಿಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಂಗಿದೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವ್ರ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಂಗಿದೆ, ಅವರು ಸಾಂಪ್ರದಾಯಿಕ ಉದ್ಯೋಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋರು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇರೆ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಇದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಿತ್ತು. ಸೊ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಇದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡೇಟಾ ಕಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡೇಟಾ ಕಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಡೀಟೈಲ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರು ಈಗ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡುವಾಗ ಡೇಟಾ ಕಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ನೋಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು, ಈ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕತ್ತೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಕೊಡಬಹುದಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಮಾತಾಡುವಾಗ ಇದು ಯಾಕೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ರಿಸರ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಓದ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿ, ಡೇಟಾ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಸರಿಯಾದ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡುವಾಗ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇದ್ರೆ ಇಂಥ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ರೈಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿನೇ ಸಿದ್ದರಾಮಯ್ಯ ಅವರು ಸಂಕಟಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಗ ನೋಡು, ಗುಲ್ಬರ್ಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಯಾರು, ಕುಮಾರಸ್ವಾಮಿ, ಯಾಕೆ 2B-12 ಯಾಕೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರಂತೆ 12% ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ಯಾರೇ ಒಬ್ಬರು ಅಧಿಕಾರದಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾಗ ಅವ್ರು ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ನ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಒಂದು ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಕ್ತಾರೆ, ಗೊಂದಲಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಕ್ತಾರೆ. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ. ಸೊ ಇಂಥದ್ದು ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನೇಕ ಸರಿ ಸಿಕ್ತು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಈ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ನ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ನಾನು ಓದುವಾಗ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಶಿಯೇಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ನ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು 15 ಡಿಸೆಂಬರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು ಅವ್ರು ಆರ್ಡರ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು. ನಮ್ದು ಇನ್ನು 25 ಡಿಸೆಂಬರ್ ವರೆಗೂ 10 ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಮುಗಿತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಆ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ನ 10 ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಆ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಎತ್ತಿದ್ರು, 10 ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಆಗೋಗಿದೆ, ಅದು ಓಲ್ಡ್ ಡೇಟಾ ಯಾಕೆ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕೀಗ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಮುಗ್ದಿಲ್ಲ, ಜೀವ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಇತ್ತು. ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಬಿಲ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸರಿಯಾದ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಶಿಯೇಷನ್ ಸಿಗಬೇಕು. ಅದನ್ನ ತೋರಿಸುವಂಥದ್ದು ಈ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇರೋದು ಕೂಡ ಮೇನ್ ಕಾರಣ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಆದರೆ ಈಗ ಬರೋದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಈಗ ಹೊಸ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಮಾಡದೆ ಇದೇ ತರ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕೂಡ ಇದು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಯುದ್ಧಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಮಂಡಲ್ ವರ್ಗ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ಸ್ ಬಂದು ಸುಪ್ರೀಂ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟ ಆ ಥರನೇ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಡೇಟಾ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಕೂಡ ನೀನು ವರದಿ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡೋದು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಡೇಟಾ ಇದ್ದಾಗಲೂ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇರೋದು ಅದರಿಂದ ಒಂದು ಮುಖ್ಯ ಲಾಭನೆ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತೇನೆ.
Okay, so those of you who are new to this thing, if you are not clear about some of the terms, one is this survey and then the report and these categories, etc. So let me just tell you the 3 stages in order to give. First one is a survey. The survey is conducted and data is collected. And once the data is collected, then based on the data, all the cash will be organized based on the socio-economic and educational advancements they have made. So an index will be worked out and each caste will be given a value number, right? Accordingly, they will be organized. The third thing is based on the advancements made or the backwardness, they will be put into various categories for the purpose of reservation in government jobs and education. So in Karnataka right now there are 5 categories: category 1, category 2A, category 2B, category 3A and category 3B. There are 5 categories into which all these OBCs fall into, and each category there has been given a fixed quantum of reservation. Now based on the data that is going to be generated, data on the representation of various castes in the government services and their educational attainments, etc., and political representation, etc., etc. So these categories will have to be reworked. So the first step is to generate data through the survey. Second, organize the various castes according to the backwardness index or advancement index that's going to be worked out. Third thing is the caste will be put into various categories, OBC part of the population, and then the quantum of reservation will have to be decided in total and then for each category. So these are the various steps involved in the second step. Just a matter of detail with regard to that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sunandamma madam. Sunandamma madam made some important points which I'll translate highlights into English. One, the current Chief Minister, Mr. Siddaramaiah, had written to the Backward Classes Commission chairperson, Mr. Jayaprakash Hegde, who was actually appointed by the previous government, to use the data from the 2014 survey and to give a report now. And accordingly, the Backward Classes Commission used the data from the 2014 to 18 survey and gave a report now. That is one point she mentioned. Secondly, she said that the reason why this survey is important and that caste has to be included in this survey is the fact that the census of India does not include caste. So while census gives data about development, it does not ask caste. So therefore, what Mr. Narayana said earlier about whether there are caste-based patterns of development cannot be figured out from the census. Therefore, it is important that such a survey covers caste, and that is an important point that she made. And in terms of whether we should cover all households or we should cover only some households, what Madam said was, when you go out to survey, you don't know who's backward, who's not. And therefore, all the households have to be covered because only then we'll know who's backward, who's not. And then like a caste-based survey has to be done. Including Narayana. Yes, including Mr. Narayana and Sudhamurthy. Then she also gave some statistics about how many households were there. There were a total of 1,35,000 odd households which were covered in the previous survey. And that report also said that report is available in Kannada. There is a PDF. If you don't have it, we can just share the PDF later on. It covered that many households and around 1.8 lakh SC households and 1.05 lakh ST households. And she also mentioned that in that report, there are people who said, we don't want to give our caste. There are some people who said we don't know our caste, and there are some people who said we really are not aware of which caste we belong to and what we can say. And Mr. Narayana had already spoken about the categorization which is there currently for the backward classes. That is 1, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B. And Sunandamma ma'am said that this report also, on the basis of the survey which was done, wanted to do some recategorization and also change the communities as to which category they belong to. And they wanted to split one into 1A and 1B. And they wanted to move some communities around. Then there was also controversy that Lingayats who are there in 3A, 3B right now, want to be moved to 2A because the category 2A has more reservation. So they feel that if we are in 3A, we'll get lesser reservation, but if we move to 2A, we'll get more. So all those kinds of demands are there. Secondly, there is also a question of there are people who submit caste certificates saying they are Banajiga, etc. But that certificate is not valid. There is issue with fake certificates. And they felt that if we move to 2A, this issue is also going to be taken care of. And the report also wanted to increase Kurvas come in 2B. And this report had recommended that the percentage given to 2B should be hiked to 12%. But she said that while making that recommendation, although this was a detailed survey, they only gave a recommendation without substantiating why. They did not say if Kurvas own less land, if they are less educated, if in employment they are not favored. Without giving a substantiation, they just said this category has to be increased to 12%. And that was used to attack Mr. Siddaramaiah because he is from the Kurva community. So some people said that he wants this report to be implemented because he is from that community. So Madam made an important point that what is the point of undertaking such an exercise if you don't substantiate it? And she made another important point which others have been saying. Even though the report might be old, only the findings are there, but the data itself should be opened out so that other researchers can also use it. If the data was opened out, then other researchers also could have researched and they could have said, are the Kurva community, is the Kurva community really backward or not, etc. That could have been done. And in fact, that I think is a concern that all of us, everybody is facing, that even though the report is old, the data must be made public so that others can study. Okay, sir, that's a different view about it. Yeah. So Madam was also saying that at least with the new report, whatever recommendations they give, there must be substantiation. If there is no substantiation for whatever recommendation, again there may be agitation, people may go to court, etc. And that is an important point to be said. Discussion ಬಂದಾಗ point ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ? Okay. So now we will go to Dr. Azhar, who will speak to us about the question of religious minorities and the Backward Classes Commission survey report and its importance.
would like to thank the organizers for providing us an opportunity and avenue. As Professor Narayana said, that we are social scientists and most of our statements are political. So in that case, I think I will also make a political statement. So my basic question is, where are religious minorities? If they are, where they are; if they are not, where they are gone. So this is, I think, the elephant in the room, which we need to address here. And I am thankful that Bahutva organization is giving a platform for researchers like us who have worked on religious minorities, specifically in Karnataka at this juncture. Okay. So before I get into this, caste census or socio-economic census with regard to minorities. Survey, yes. Sorry.
Educational, it says educational.
Yes, no, madam. It just says social and education.
Educational,
Yes.
not economic.
Not economic.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, I'm just
No,
reading.
thank you for clarity.
Yeah.
ಇಲ್ಲ, ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಮತ್ತು ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ
No, sir, I'm asking this question because they're going to people's house and ask how much gold you have, how much immovable and movable property. So if it's not in economic survey, why are they asking?
We'll discuss it.
Yeah, that's all.
But a question of backwardness cannot be answered without also knowing economic factors, without knowing land and other things. We cannot
ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು
discuss
ಆಡ್
it.
ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಲ್ಲ, ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನಲ್ ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 15 and 16 ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಆನ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಅದು ಹೇಳೋದೇ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ನೆಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ಇಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ಅಮಾಂಗ್ ದ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್, among the class, among the gender and the place and also language, 15 article. So in that way, where the backwardness will be exist ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಈ 3-5 ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಆರು ಮುಖ್ಯನೇ ನಮಗೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಜೆಂಡರ್ನ ಮಾತಾಡೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲಿ, ಬರೀ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತೀವಿ.
Correct.
ಈಗ ನಾವು ಕುಲಕಸಬು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ವಾ, ಆ ಕುಲಕಸಬು ಹೆಂಗಸರಿಗೆ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಹೆಂಗಸಿಗೂ ಇದೆ, ನಾ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ.
I think the question of caste with respect to religious minorities, quite academic studies have established here that it is a very icky question, sir, for religious minorities particularly. Though academicians, we all say that, since we are part of the Indian society, caste has seeped into the fabric of Indian society, sir. Irrespective of you are a Muslim, Christian, Parsi, or even Jain and Sikh also in India, you belong to some or the other caste. This has been established, recently, and also those scholars have been arguing it from quite a long period of time. But now this has been registered in the minds of the people. Though still we have some, extreme groups, extreme organizations who still disagree with this. They say no, particularly with Islam and Christianity also. They say scripturally, there is no stratification on the basis of caste. We do agree scripturally there is not, but practically it is there. Since these communities are part of the Indian society, they are the fabric of the Indian society. So therefore, whether I am a Muslim, Christian or not, and I belong to some or the other caste. Okay, so this has been very well established, and also recently past, particularly during the time of elections, many of the religious community leaders, faith-based organizations, from the communities have come to forefront, and they have acknowledged this part, and they are trying to see what best we can do in this field. Anyway, more than that, what I would like to argue here, or at least put my argument here, is that first of all, before political representation, the question of participation also needs to be addressed. Okay, hardly political participation is there from religious minorities in social, economic, political fields. And much more before that, I would also like to tell political awareness is also very less. So many of the studies which have been conducted, though very few in the context of Karnataka and in the context of India, some studies have been taken place where they clearly have articulated saying that the awareness level is very low. Okay, and because awareness level is low, participation rate tends to be low, and since participation is also very less, quite evidently or naturally you can expect political representation also to be less from these communities. So much so that the depreciation or the expected based on the population proportion how much it should be, many times you see they are very much underrepresented, and quite significantly in many places there are zero representations are. Okay, so this is one important part. The second important part, talking about the welfare programs and schemes. See, there are no policies per se, even in government of Karnataka also. Is there any policy per se for religious minorities? Irrespective of any government which has come into the play, whether it is BJP government or Congress government or JDS government or any coalition government.
Now they gave budget for the minorities. It's not budget, they have not given.
I am not talking about the budget and allocation.
Congress government gave budget for minorities.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam, one minute.
No budget for no disease. No disease.
ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅವ್ರ ಮಾತು ಮುಗಿಸ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅವರ ಜೀವನ ಹೇಳಿ
ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಸಿದ್ದರಾಮಯ್ಯ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್
ಅಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಅವ್ರ ಮಾತನ್ನ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಲಿ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಮೇಡಮ್ ನೀವು ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಭಿನ್ನಮತನ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಪಡಿಸಬಹುದು ನಡುವೆ ಇದು ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಪ್ಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ
Madam, policy is different from giving money.
ಬಜೆಟ್ ಬೇರೆ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ಬೇರೆ ಮೇಡಮ್ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇರ್ತೀರಾ
Please don't interrupt. I request everybody
Yes.
not to interrupt the speakers. Please don't ask any questions when they're speaking. There is space for questions later. You can raise your question later. We will make sure that you have a chance. Please don't interrupt the speaker.
ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಸಾವಧಾನತೆಯಿಂದಲೂ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು ನಮ್ಮ ಭಿನ್ನಮತವನ್ನ.
Let me reiterate, I spoke, is there any specific policy per se by the state government towards religious minorities? As per my studies, I haven't found out. I have spoken to many people, I have spoken to bureaucrats working in ministry, directorate of minorities, minority commission. The allocation is there, I agree. I am not saying there is no budgetary allocation. But is there any policy per se? There is no policy. What we have is that we have something called as these welfare programs and schemes, which are again very government centric. Okay, anytime any government comes, if they wishes, they will continue. If they do not wish, it will be stopped. Okay, so unlike the what we call the permanent nature of the backward class commission or Karnataka Women Commission or Karnataka Human Rights Commission, there is no permanence factor for Karnataka State Minority Commission or any of these formal institutions. They may do, most of the governments do continue as part of their regular rigor. But if they even wish, they could do away with it. That is all my point I am saying. And so therefore, these welfare programs, whether it is by State Minorities Development Corporation or by there is something called as Work Foundation for Women Development or for Urdu Academy or any of these Directorate of Minorities even which takes part. Okay, so much of these are all in the name of welfare schemes and programs, sir. So there is, we have seen quite significantly from past so many decades also. In fact, the Directorate of Minorities came in the year only 2003. Before that, entire religious minorities was questioned by handled by the Backward Class Commission itself. So since they have started separating religious minorities to be taken up by the Directorate of Minorities or Ministry of Minority Affairs. So generally, the Backward Class Commission does not think too much about the question of religious minorities. So having said so, okay, based on my study, it has clearly come out that the state politics and political representations, okay, are very defining factors for welfare schemes and programs. So today, religious minorities again I have also checked some of the backward class commissions way back in 1970s, 80s and 90s. They consistently, all the backward class commissions, they have considered religious minorities and specifically Muslims and Christians to be backward in any of the parameters you take. Whether you take per capita income, whether you take their literacy level or sex ratio, okay, or any one of the socio-economic parameters which generally the academicians peg on, in all these parameters they are backward. In fact, today sorry madam, when I say religious minorities, of course, within religious minorities one can dissect between Christians, Muslims, Jains, Parsis, Sikhs, but again all of these 6 communities have been clubbed together and have been put in under the one basket. So therefore we use the term religious minorities. But again specifically Muslims are the majorities among the minority. So therefore, generally when we say minority question, Muslim question comes to the forefront. I agree, madam. With regard to Christians, the educational percentages are very high. I agree to it. Yes. So the point, sir, what with regard to this, socio-economic caste census was there. So this was taken up by quite many communities, our faith-based organization, religious leaders, even political leaders. They all had certain meetings, conventions, and they had called people to, discuss and debate what to do in this regard, how should we participate. So wholeheartedly, religious minorities and particularly Muslims have taken part in this caste socio-economic survey, and there has been hardly any resistance from Muslim community. Max to max, what we heard was that the question of caste became important again, because our religious leaders still now, quite many of them are not in terms, they are not in agreement that there is caste among Muslims in Karnataka or Muslims in India. But nonetheless, when people like us and many others explain to them, sir, this is not the case. Scripturally, you may be very right, but practically you are wrong, because we do have caste practices. Our marriages are also happen within the caste. Quite many a time there are biradaris, there are castes, there are khandans in different castes or caste analogous, as they call caste analogous, or caste-like factors we use here. So, but with regard to participation in survey, wholeheartedly people have participated from masjids, madrasas, and even from other religious communities, faith-based organizations. They have encouraged people to participate, and even in fact recently during my last visit to masjid, there was an enumerator sitting inside the masjid only. So even the imam of that particular masjid, the locality where I have been, they announced that if you have not participated in the survey, please get your documents here to the masjid. We have an enumerator here. Perhaps you would have missed because of XYZ reasons, etc. So this is one thing, sir. And lastly, my concluding remarks, which we can again come to, is that with regard to budgetary allocation, recently also we see, madam, with all due respect, budget allocation is there, but budget utilization is again a question mark. So I quite consistently, irrespective of the government, the utilization of budget is less. And much of the, if you see budget allocation and what all it is allocated within that, close to 50 to 60% it is going for salaries and administrative activities of these offices only. It is going for the, their cars, their tours, and their photographs, and their reports all shiny, glossy, only filled with photos. There is, in the name of reports, what they are putting is photo galleries they are. Okay. So therefore, quite large percentage of budgetary allocation goes only with this. So hardly money is left. Of course, there are certain welfare programs, some scholarship is there, some sort of skill building activity is happening, but very, very less. If you see in terms of percentages, I haven't done any study as such, looking at the percentage wise, so therefore I will not take any percentage. But on prima facie, on the face value, if you see that the utilization of the budgetary allocation is very less. In fact, yesterday's report only it has come out that budget is given, but how much is given to the department is still less, and again from within that also how much it is utilized is again very, very less. So therefore, there are so many issues, so many challenges which religious minorities feel, and moreover from with this government, again I would like to say that the winning of this government, particularly the present government, almost majority religious minorities, particularly Muslims, voted for the current regime, sir. There is no doubt about it, and it has been established thorough by various different sources. But however, whatever the promises or whatever the expectations which we had from this government, and all their other, they have not met, they have not seen the light of the day, and quite it is disturbing factor that they are being sidelined, marginalized in different ways, many times legally also, and many times without knowing. Agreed. I agree that these schemes, there are so many general schemes, and for everybody, you did not have to be religious minority only to avail them. But what I am saying is that when most of the religious minorities are unaware about the programs and policies or welfare schemes, rather I would like to say, given by these formal institutions which are for the religious minorities empowerment, then how can we expect them to gain benefit or be beneficiary of the general programs and schemes? So these are some more other petty questions are there which I will take up in the subsequent.
ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ಗೂ ಮತ್ತು ಮೈನಾರಿಟೀಸ್ಗೂ ಏನು ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಜನಗಣತಿಯಲ್ಲೇ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಧರ್ಮದ ಆಧಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಸಿಕ್ಬಿಡತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜೈನಸ್ ಎಷ್ಟು, ಬೌದ್ಧರೆಷ್ಟು, ಮುಸ್ಲಿಮ್ಸ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇದು ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಮಗೆ ಅವ್ರ ಡೇಟಾ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಗೆ ಜನಗಣತಿ ಸಾಕು. ಆದರೆ 2011 ಜನಗಣತಿನೇ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ, 21 ಅದು ಆಗಬೇಕಿತ್ತು, ಇನ್ನೂ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಇನ್ನೂ ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಮೇನ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇಂದಿನ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟು ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ ಹಾಕಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಹಾಕಿದ ನಿಷೇಧ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಕೂಡ ಈ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಗೆ ನೀವು ಒಟ್ಟು
ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಒಂದು ಡಿಮ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಇದು ಒಂದು 4% ಅದೇನಂತೂ ಅದು ತುಂಬಾ ಕಡಿಮೆ. 4% is very bigger. Even going by the population, based on population proportion, the percentage of reservation for overall Muslims, particularly in 2D, should have been much more. In fact, this report
70.4% Muslims in general.
Yes, madam. ಜನಗಣತಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದು 2015 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿರೋ ವರದಿ. According to 2011, because we academicians we seek more reliability, and everywhere you go we have to prove that our data is very sacred, it is holy, etc. So in order to do that, we generally take the data from the census of India only. So according to that, the entire Karnataka it is pegged at 16%, according to 2011. But here I see 17 point something or close to 18. And as part of the recommendation way back in 2015, the Retd report had suggested to give 8%. They had recommended. No, but again, as we see, this is in fiasco, in limbo. So we do not know, how things are proceeding ahead.
Ma'am, when this 4% you mentioned, is it limited to certain contracts or government contracts?
No, sir. I'm not referring to that. It is not about the government contracts at all. It is general in education and employment, sir. Like how for OBC BP Mandal suggested 27% for education and employment. Though in education it was implemented only in 2008, sir. What Narayana sir pointed out, BP Mandal. In education, the OBC category came up only after 2008. First in employment, it was in start in 1993.
ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಅಜರ್ ಅವರು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ ಅನುವಾದ ಸಂಕ್ಷೇಪವಾಗಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ಸಿಂಥಿಯಾ ಸ್ಟೀಫನ್ ಅವರು ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ ಸಮುದಾಯಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತ ಒಂದು 2 ಅಂಶ ಸೇರಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದು ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಸೇರಿಸಲಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅನಿಶಾ ನಿಮಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ.
Thank you for that, Dr. Azhar. Actually, there are two of the minorities and the Christians are significant, maybe numerically not as much as Muslims, but once way above their weight in terms of institutional stability, particularly historically. ಆದರೆ ಇವಾಗ ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ನನಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸುಮಾರು 14 years have passed since last proper census. And so the figures for Christians in Karnataka are very much not in keeping with the reality. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಸುಮಾರು ಈ ವರ್ಷಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇತ್ತೀಚೆಗೆ there has been a growth in the numbers. ಸುಮಾರು ಜನ ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ ಆಗಿ ಅವರು ಆ ಧರ್ಮವನ್ನು ಆಯ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂಥದ್ದು ಉಂಟು. ಒಂದು. ಎರಡನೇದು there is a misconception, ಅವರು ಫಾರ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಇವಾಗ ಮಿಸ್ಕನ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, legally speaking also, ಕಾನೂನು ಪ್ರಕಾರವಾಗಿ ಅದರ್ ದೆನ್ SC/ST ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಅಡ್ವಾನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತಾನೆ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಅವರು ಎಜುಕೇಶನಲಿ ಅಡ್ವಾನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥ ಧೋರಣೆ ಇದೆ. ಆದರೆ ಇತ್ತೀಚೆಗೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದಂಗೆ 14-15 years ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ, RSS is very clear about it. They know what is the reality on the ground because they are on the ground. ನಮಗೂ ಒಂದಿಷ್ಟು ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಗ್ರಹಿಕೆ ಇದೆ. ಒಂದು ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಇದೆ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಕಮ್ ಔಟ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಷ್ಡ್ ವೆರಿ ಸೂನ್. ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯ ಅಕಾಡೆಮಿ ಅವರು ದೇ ಡಿಡ್ ಎ ಸರ್ವೆ ಆನ್ ದಲಿತ್ ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂಸ್. ಬಿಜೆಪಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅಂತ ಸರ್ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವಾಗ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಸೂನ್ ಕಮ್ ಔಟ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಹೂ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ರಿಟನ್ ದಟ್ ಆರ್ ಸೇಯಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ವೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, 3-4 divisions ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದು ಅಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಡೇಟಾನಲ್ಲೇ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬಾಡಿ ಡೇಟಾನಲ್ಲೇ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ 5 5 to 7% ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ ಹೌದು, ಆದರೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಗಿರೋರು 15 years ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ತುಂಬಾ ಹಿಂದುಳಿದ ವರ್ಗಗಳು. SC, ಆದಿವಾಸಿ, BNT, ಆಮೇಲೆ SC ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, OBCs ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. This is the real reason why there was so much of a fuss about the inclusion of all the categories of Christian castes. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಬಿಜೆಪಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲ ವರ್ಗಗಳು ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಎಂಟರ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು, they want to still say that only SCs and STs are choosing to convert. ಇದು ಅವರ ಧೋರಣೆ. they don't want this information. Fact is that almost all categories, there are Brahmins, there are Kurubas, there are Lingayats, Lambadis, en masse, Adivasi communities in Chamarajanagar for instance. ಸುಮಾರು ಆ ಥರ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಇದು ನಿಜಾಂಶ ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು ವಿಷಯ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಆ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್, therefore it begs the question about whether Christians are now in an advanced category. ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ ಆಗಿ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫೈ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದು ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳ ಜನ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ರಿಟೇನ್ಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ನೋ ರೀಸನ್. ಅವ್ರು ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ದಂಗೆ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದೇರ್, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಎ ರಿಯಾಲಿಟಿ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಪೌರಕಾರ್ಮಿಕ ಅವರು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಕನ್ವರ್ಟ್ ಆದ್ರೂ ಅದೇ ಕೆಲಸನೇ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ, ಹೌ ಡು ಯು ಡಿನೈ ಒನ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್ ದ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದೇರ್ ಫೇತ್? ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್. ಇದೊಂದು ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನಲ್ ಫಿಕ್ಷನ್, ಲೀಗಲ್ ಫಿಕ್ಷನ್. ಅದನ್ನ ಚಾಲೆಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಕೂಡ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಏನು ಫಲಿತ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಇನ್ನೂ ನಡೀತಾನೆ ಇದೆ 30+ years ಇಂದ. Therefore, the population is growing, but as a matter of fact, our economic status ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಓವರಾಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಇವಾಗ ಗ್ರೌಂಡಲ್ಲಿರೋ ರಿಸರ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಲೀಡರ್ಸ್ ಅದು ಇದನ್ನ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತೀನಿ.
ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಗೊಂದು ಆ್ಯಡ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಏನಂದ್ರೆ, ನೋಡಿ, SC Christian decline in the SC, ST Christian decline in the ST only. They are not climbing in the Christian community. ಇಲ್ಲ, they take the reservation certificate. SC ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಮತ್ತು ಇವಾಗ SC ಬೌದ್ಧರು ಕೂಡ ತಗೋಬೋದು ಅಂತ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಕೂಡ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇದು ಯಾಕೆ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾತಾಡೋದ್ರೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಬರಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ, ಇವನ್ ಇನ್ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಕಟ್ಟುಕರು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ, ಕ್ಲೈಮಿಂಗ್ ಆಸ್ SC. Human community they climbing as a ST. ಅವರು ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ವೈಸ್ ದೇ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಪಿಂಜಾರ್ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸೊ ಈ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕಾಗಿಯೇ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರಿ 1 ಪಿಂಜಾರ್.
ನಾನು ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಅಜರ್ ಅವ್ರು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದನ್ನ ಸಂಕ್ಷಿಪ್ತವಾಗಿ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಅವರು ಮೊದಲನೇ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಅಂಶ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಮೈನಾರಿಟೀಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಧರ್ಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಧರ್ಮ ಗ್ರಂಥಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾತಿ ಇಲ್ಲದೆ ಇದ್ರೂ ಸಹ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋ ಒಂದು ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ಜಾತಿ ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಇದೆ. ನೀವು ಸಂಶೋಧನೆ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ, ಡೇಟಾ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ತುಂಬಾ ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ. ಎರಡನೇದು, ಅಲ್ಪಸಂಖ್ಯಾತರ ಒಂದು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಅವೇರ್ನೆಸ್, ಮಾಹಿತಿನೂ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇದೆ ಸಮುದಾಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಅವರು ಈ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಪ್ರಕ್ರಿಯೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಿಕೆನೂ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅವ್ರ ಪ್ರತಿನಿಧಿತ್ವ ಇನ್ನೂ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಅದು ನಮ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಪ್ರತಿನಿಧಿತ್ವ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಒಂದೇನ್ ನೋಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ನಾವು ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟ ನೀತಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಪಸಂಖ್ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ. ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲೋಕೇಶನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ಗಳಿದೆ. ಒಂದೊಂದು ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಬಂದಾಗ ಅವರು ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ, ಆ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಹೋದಾಗ ಓದ್ಬೋದು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ನೀತಿ ಅಲ್ಪಸಂಖ್ಯಾತರಿಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅವರು ತುಂಬಾ ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟರೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೈನಾರಿಟೀಸ್ 2003 ರಚನೆ ಆಯಿತು. ಅಂಡ್ ಇನ್ನೊಂದೇನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟರೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೈನಾರಿಟೀಸ್ ರಚನೆ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಹಿಂದುಳಿದ ವರ್ಗಗಳ ಆಯೋಗ ಅಲ್ಪಸಂಖ್ಯಾತರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎನಿವೇ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟರೇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೈನಾರಿಟೀಸ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ರು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಹಿಂದುಳಿದ ವರ್ಗಗಳ ವರದಿಗಳು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ 1970s, 80s, 90s ಈ ವರದಿನೂ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಧಾರ್ಮಿಕ ಅಲ್ಪಸಂಖ್ಯಾತರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಸೋಷಿಯಲಿ ಎಜುಕೇಶನಲಿ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡೇ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ನೀವು ಲಿಟ್ರಸಿ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ, ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ, ಸೆಕ್ಸ್ ರೇಷನ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ, ಯಾವುದೇ ಅಂಶಗಳು ನೋಡಿದ್ರು ಅವರು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಆಗೇ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಗೆ ಬಂತ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ಅಟ್ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಸಮುದಾಯ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಧರ್ಮಗುರುಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಸಹ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಕೆಲವು ಧರ್ಮಗುರುಗಳು ಇನ್ನೂ ಸಹ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾತಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿರೋ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾಗವಹಿಸಿದಾಗ ಅವ್ರ ಜಾತಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅವರು ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳದೇ ಇರ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಇನ್ನೊಂದವರು ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಗೆ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಜಾತಿ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ.
ಧರ್ಮ ಇಸ್ಲಾಂ ಅಂತ ಕೊಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, ಜಾತಿ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಅಂತ ಹೆಸರು ಕೊಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ.
ಅದು ಎರಡು ತರ ಆಗಿತ್ತು, ಅದು ಆಮೇಲೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಅಂಶ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ಮುಗಿಸಿ ಅನೀಶ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಧಾರ್ಮಿಕ ಅಲ್ಪಸಂಖ್ಯಾತರಿಗೆ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲೋಕೇಶನ್ ಇದ್ರೂ ಸಹ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲಾಟ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಬಟ್ ಅದು ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಹೋಗೋಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಹೋದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಯುಟಿಲೈಸೇಷನ್ ಸಹ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ದುಡ್ಡಿದ್ರೂ ಸಹ ಅದನ್ನ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅವರು ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸಿದಾಗಲೂ ಅದು ಸಂಬಳಗಳಿಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ಗಳಿಗೆ, ಟೂರ್ಗಳಿಗೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದರ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣಕ್ಕೆ ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಈಗ ಅನೀಶಾ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಹೋಗೋಣ. ಅನೀಶಾ ಅವರು ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಿನಿಟ್ ನ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಬ್ಯೂರೋ ಚೀಫ್ ಅವರು ಈ ಏನು ನಾರಾಯಣ ಸರ್ ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ಈ ಬಲಿಷ್ಠ ಜಾತಿಯವರು ಹೇಗೆ ಅಪೋಸಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವಿವರಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಕೇಳ್ಕೊತೀನಿ. ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕ್ ಇನ್ ಎನಿ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್. ಇದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ತಗೊಂಡು.
I just want to make one respond to a couple of points made by the other speakers. One, I think, is that Narayana, okay, political activist for the day, Narayana, saying that the government is in possibly no position to defend the data of the previous survey. I think it might be possible if the government has the way to do it, because as far as I know, all the data that has been generated in the 2015 survey has been digitized. So it is, I am hypothetically speaking, in searchable format, lying in a room somewhere, nobody knows where, but it does exist. And it may, and as far as I know, again, this is the social welfare minister, Mr. Shivraj Takanki, has said that the data is organized by community but also by district. So, back to okay, Shivraj Takanki, Mr. Shivraj Takanki said that this data is organized district-wise. So, there is a massive amount of data which actually might be possible for the government to defend, to actually prove or disprove the claims made by powerful caste groups that the data collected is unscientific. And the only justification that these groups have made that to say that this data is unscientific is ನಮ್ಮ ಮನೆ ಬರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೆ ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಕೇಳಿದೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಬಂಧಿಕರಿಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೆ ಕೇಳಿದೆ, ಅವ್ರ ಮನೆಗೆ ಬರಲಿಲ್ಲ. That is all they have to say. And I also spoke to, so nobody in the media has actually asked any of these groups why they are claiming this data is unscientific. This brings me to some of the failures of the media with regard to, okay, generally overall failures of the media when it comes to the survey. But I want to also raise, I think Professor Sunandamma said that the census does not ask for caste. I would like to look at this a little differently, because the census does ask for caste in terms of looking at, as Professor Cynthia Maidu has said, it asks only people if they are SC or ST. Now why this again brings us back to the question of why there is so much resistance to this particular survey, because it asks privileged people for their caste for a change and to name that caste. And this is why you see so much opposition to it. And where is this opposition coming from? It is coming from precisely the same groups who 2015 claimed that this survey is unscientific, saying that you did come to my house, and now they have all gone to court saying this is not what the government is doing is a census. Right? So now they are making the opposite argument in court. Okay. So why there are a lot of other things also that have not been challenged by the media. One is his claims of why this survey is unscientific, right? Secondly, it is also Yeah, 2014, sorry. 2014, 2015. Okay. So census also doesn't ask for caste, but yeah, again, coming back to this. Now, even when somebody like Sunandamma and Narayana come out and say we are not backward, that's why we did not participate in this survey, again it goes unchallenged in the media. If I remember correctly, there was one, I think, at least in the English media, I haven't tracked the Kannada media very closely on this time now, over this particular issue. There was one piece in Deccan Herald which critiqued that position that taken by the Murthy's and my own story, which questioned why this claim needs to be challenged. In the government, there was nobody except Mr. Priyank who made like a big kind of statement saying an MP should be more responsible. And Sunandamma himself was rather far more critical, right? He was like, who are these people to say that they are not like, do they know everything? So that was one thing that went unchallenged in the media. I would like to also talk about something of a term that our political activists for the day, Mr. Narayana used, which is that these caste groups are, the resistance to it is irrational. I would like to take a slightly different position. It appears irrational on the surface level, but I would say it is an instinctive protection. That resistance is self-preservation instinct kicking in among the powerful caste groups. And for this, I think we also need to look at, this also ties back to the media, because who is in the media? It is these very same groups. Who owns a majority of the media in this country? Okay, in the state, forget, the country is too diverse, but there is also ownership data on media in the country, which I forget now, but okay. Coming back to Karnataka, most media houses in the state, the legacy media houses in the state, are owned by Brahmins. There are, I think, only two exceptions to this. One is Varta Bharati, which is owned by a trust, and also it also stands out because it's the only Muslim managed newspaper in the state. The second exception to this is, I think, Vijayawani, but which is owned by a Lingayat. Deccan Herald, I'm coming to that. Deccan Herald, the editor has always been a Brahmin. Or in Vijayawani, the editor has always been a Brahmin. Now you can argue over the specifics of it here and there in terms of percentages or number of editors or whatever, but the fact remains that the media is entirely comprised of a Brahmin editorial leadership or direct ownership, and among journalists also it is mostly the powerful journalists, it is mostly journalists from these powerful groups who are telling you what you should be thinking about the caste survey or caste census. Right? Now even I by default, keep calling it caste survey because it is just easier to do it.
Caste census.
Both. Initially even I started out because I also didn't know enough. It's only when I'm like, why are these people going on and on about this rubbish, that I also started looking into it. And that's also when I also got an education as a journalist on what this entire issue is. And the reportage, if you look at it, is the agenda set by these caste associations. It is the agenda set by the BJP, and these are the same claims that have been amplified over and over and over again in the media. Has anybody in the media actually explained this? Only the former member of the Backward Classes Commission, Mr. K.N. Lingappa, who has actually been doing what the current backward classes job should have been, what the current backward classes commission should have been doing. And who talks to Mr. K.N. Lingappa? Very few people. Varta Bharati gives him space on its editorial columns, and independent media, Kannada media houses who give him a space to explain what all this means. Right? So what you're hearing is just an echo chamber of the kind of talk that goes on in powerful people's homes, right? About what they should be, what the socio-economic survey is. They have neither bothered to understand it, or I think it is deliberate because it will expose, it will basically give you numbers for just how privileged they are. It will actually give you data for what privilege looks like in terms of each community, right? And question of newsroom diversity, which in the Indian context, at least as far as I know, was raised for the first time in 1996. When this person called Mr. Chandraman Prasad, he and another person called Shivraj Singh Bechain, I think, they wrote to the Press Council of India and the Editors Guild asking them to take some kind of action in terms of newsroom diversity. Where did they get that idea from? They got that idea from the 1970s when the American Association for Newspaper Editors started looking into that. There had been a riot, I think, in Chicago or somewhere, and then they realized suddenly that it was only the black press which was doing any kind of real journalism in terms of pointing out where the violence lay and so on. And in the context of all of this, in 1990, I think at some point there was the journalist for the Washington Post, I think, I forget that gentleman's name. He started looking for Dalit journalists in Delhi. And then he realized that among the accredited journalists in Delhi, government accredited journalists in Delhi, there wasn't anybody who could be identified as a Dalit person by their name. And so that set the context for Mr. Chandraman Prasad to make the same demand of Indian newspaper editors. The two of them had a memorandum that they wrote to about practically all the national editors in Delhi. Not one single goddamn editor replied, except for Chandan Mitra, who was, I think, heading the Pioneer at that point of time. And Chandan Mitra is an open, I think he's at least an RSS or some sympathizer, I don't know if he's a member, but he gave a column to Chandraman Prasad to write what is called as Dalit Diary, and those columns are today brought out by Narayana, I think. So, what you seriously lack is a diversity of voices in the Indian media, both at the national level and in Karnataka certainly, and that is also why we have failed. See, two groups of people have spectacularly failed when it comes to the socio-economic survey. One is obviously the government, and by extension, I mean that the government, which has done a shoddy job, politicians have been setting the agenda when it should have been the Backward Classes Commission. The Backward Classes Commission has had very little to say in this entire thing, and whenever they have said something, it doesn't quite get the same amount of attention, either in terms of quality or in terms of quantity. Space in newspapers or airtime, audio time on the TV channels. The second group of people who have spectacularly failed is the media, who have, as I said, who have done a terrible job of doing it, of explaining or setting the record straight. Right? That leaves civil society groups like yourselves, like the organizers of this event, in Bangalore, across the state, whatever small reach they have, but it is simply not enough to dent the overall narrative set by vested interests and then amplified by the media, who also have a vested interest because they come from the same communities that the survey is likely to expose. Right? I think that is about all I have to say.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಅನೀಶಾ ಅವರೇ. ಅನೀಶಾ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದನ್ನ ಸಂಕ್ಷಿಪ್ತವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಸುನಂದಮ್ಮ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಸೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಜಾತಿ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಸೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾತಿ ನೋಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಬಟ್ ಬರೀ ಪರಿಶಿಷ್ಟ ಜಾತಿ ಮತ್ತು ಪಂಗಡಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾತ್ರ. ಬಟ್ ಈ ಸತಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸೋಷಿಯೋ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಸೋಷಿಯೋ ಎಜುಕೇಶನಲ್ ಸರ್ವೆನಲ್ಲಿ ಬಲಿಷ್ಠ ಡಾಮಿನೆಂಟ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅವರು ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಒಂದು ವಿರೋಧ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಅಂಶ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು 2015 ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ ತಿರಸ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗ ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಷನ್, ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ್ ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಅನ್ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಇದು ಬಟ್ ಇವ್ರಿಗೆ ನಿಂತಿರೋ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಯಾಕೆ ಅದು ಅನ್ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ಅಂತ ಅವರು ವಿವರಣೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಾಧ್ಯಮದವರು ಕೇಳಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅನ್ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಅವ್ರು ಒಂದೇ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋ ಮನೆಗೆ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದೊಂದೇ ಕಾರಣ ಅವರು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋದು. ಅದ್ ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಏನು ಕಾರಣ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ಅನೀಶ್ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಮಾಧ್ಯಮದವರು ಯಾಕೆ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಎತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಯಾಕೆ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ.
ಸಾರಿ, ಬಟ್ ಐ ವಾಂಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗಿನ ಸರ್ವೆಗಳು ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಹಿಡಿದು ಬಿಪಿ ಮಂಡಲ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹಿಡಿದು ಓಕೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಅನ್ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಕ್ಲೇಮ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗಿನ ಕಮಿಷನ್ಗಳು ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಹಿಡಿದು ಚಿನ್ನಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ತನಕ ಅವರು ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಹಾರ್ಮೋನ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಅದು 1% ಇಡೀ ಸ್ಟೇಟಿನ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಸ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್ ಸರ್ವೆ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಇಲ್ಲಿವರೆಗೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗರು ಲಿಂಗಾಯತರು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಡಿಮಾಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ನಮಗೂ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಕೊಡಿ. ಆ 1% ಸ್ಯಾಂಪಲ್ ಸರ್ವೆ ಒಂದು ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ನೆಸ್ ನ ಅವರು ಅದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯಾರು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇರ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಇವಾಗ ಈ ಸರ್ವೆ ಕವರೇಜ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಪ್ರಕಾರ 94% ಇರುವುದು. 94% ಜನ ಅದು ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಯಾವ ಸರ್ವೆ
ಈಗ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಸರ್?
2050 ಇನ್ನು ಈ ಸರ್ವೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. 94% ಅಂತ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಯಾವ ಜಗತ್ತಿನ ಯಾವ ಸರ್ವೆ ನೋಡಿದ್ರು ಸಹ ಇಷ್ಟು ಕವರೇಜ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಸಾಧ್ಯ. ನೀವು ಯಾವ ರಿಸರ್ಚ್ ಮಾಡಿ ದಿಸ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಡೇಟಾ ಕಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಸಾಧ್ಯ. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪಾಸಿಬಲ್. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಯಾವ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ ಚಾಲೆಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ?
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದನ್ನ ಮುಂದುವರಿಸ್ತಾ, ಸೊ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ ಒಂದು ಮಾಧ್ಯಮದವರು ಈ ಬಲಿಷ್ಠ ಜಾತಿಗಳ ಹಿತಾಸಕ್ತಿಗಳನ್ನ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಮಾಧ್ಯಮದ ಓನರ್ಶಿಪ್ ಬಲಿಷ್ಠ ಜಾತಿಗಳ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಇದರ ಪೇಪರ್ ಚಾನೆಲ್ ಓನರ್ಶಿಪ್ ಅಥವಾ ಸಂಪಾದಕರು ಎಡಿಟರ್ಸ್ ಓನರ್ಶಿಪ್ ಬಲಿಷ್ಠ ಜಾತಿಯವರು ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅವ್ರ ಕವರೇಜ್ ಸಹ ಅದೇ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ನೀವು ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಪೇಪರ್ಸ್ ಟಿವಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಬಲಿಷ್ಠ ಜಾತಿಗಳು ಏನೇ ಇದಾರೋ ಅವ್ರ ಅಜೆಂಡಾ ಮಾತ್ರ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಹೊರತು ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವರು ಒಂದು ಉದಾಹರಣೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು ಹಿಂದಿನ ಹಿಂದುಳಿದ ವರ್ಗಗಳ ಆಯೋಗದ ಸದಸ್ಯರಾದ ಲಿಂಗಪ್ಪ ಅವರು ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಕು ಅದು ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತ ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಯಾರು ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ವಾರ್ತಾ ಭಾರತಿ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕೆಲವು ಕನ್ನಡ ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮಿಕ್ಕಿರೋರು ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಸಹ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ರು ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರು ಅನ್ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ಅಂತ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆನೂ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರು ರಿಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಈ ಮಾಧ್ಯಮಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾಕೆ ಡೈವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಇನ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅವರು. ಮತ್ತೆ 70ರ ದಶಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಚಂದ್ರಕಾಂತ್ ಪ್ರಸಾದ್ ಅವರು ಮಿಕ್ಕಿರೋರು ಸಹ 90ರ ದಶಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವಿವರಣೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಕೊನೆದಾಗ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ ಏನಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಈಗ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತೆ 2 ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಫೇಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಒಂದು ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ, ಸರ್ಕಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೀ ಪವರ್ಫುಲ್ ರಾಜಕಾರಣಿಗಳೇ ಈ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಹಿಂದುಳಿದ ವರ್ಗಗಳು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಿತ್ತು ಅವ್ರು ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಕೇಶನ್ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತೆ ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಿತ್ತು ಅವ್ರು ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ ಸರ್ಕಾರದಲ್ಲೂ ಪವರ್ಫುಲ್ ಆಗಿರೋ ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಎರಡನೇದು ಮೀಡಿಯಾದವರು ತುಂಬಾ ಫೇಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ಇದರ ನಿಜವಾದ ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಸಹ ಆಚೆ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ. ಬಾಕಿ ಜನಪರ ಸಂಘಟನೆಗಳು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಚರ್ಚೆಗಳ ಆಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಏನೊಂದು ನರೇಟಿವ್ ಸೆಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಒಂದು ಡಾಮಿನೆಂಟ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂದ, ಆ ನರೇಟಿವ್ ನ ನಿಲ್ಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಸಿವಿಲ್ ಸೊಸೈಟಿ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ನನಗನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಜಾಗೃತ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ತುಂಬಾ ಸಭೆಗಳು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನೀವು ಅವ್ರ ಫೇಸ್ಬುಕ್ ಅಥವಾ ಅವ್ರ ಫೇಸ್ಬುಕ್ ಪೇಜ್ ಫಾಲೋ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಬಿಟ್ಟರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ನಾವು ಸಹ ಇದೊಂದೇ ಸದ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಆಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು. ಸೊ ಇಷ್ಟು ಅನೀಶಾ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಈಗ ನಾವು ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ರೌಂಡ್ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಹೋಗೋಣ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೆ. ಬಟ್ ಈಗ ಸುಮಾರು ಟೈಮ್ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಾವು ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ. ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಒಂದು ಮೀಸಲಾತಿ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ರೌಂಡ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರಿಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಕೇಳಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ನಂತರ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೇಳುವುದು. ಸೊ ಈ ಮಹಿಳಾ ಮೀಸಲಾತಿ ನಾನ್ ಮೆನ್ಗೆ ಮೀಸಲಾತಿ ಇದೆ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ರೌಂಡ್ ಇಸ್ ಟು ನಾನ್ ಮೆನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಗಂಡಸರಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ರೌಂಡ್ ಇಸ್ ಒಂದು 3 ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ಆ 3 ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗೆ ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ನಂತರ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು 3 ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗೆ ಹೋಗೋಣ. ಓಕೆ, ದ ಫ್ಲೋರ್ ಇಸ್ ಓಪನ್ ಫಾರ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್. ಈಗ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು.
ಅಡಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
ನೀವು ಅಡಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ.
ಅಡಿಷನ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ನ ಸಭೆಗೆ
ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಯೋರ್ಸೆಲ್ಫ್.
ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್
ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಕಿತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು.
ಇಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಚರ್ಚೆಗೆ ಈಗ ಈ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ ಸೆನ್ಸರ್ ಸರ್ವೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು 1995 Mandal judgment. This Mandal judgment has also addressed the question of how to make the survey.
That's a very important thing. And in that thing, it has made this reference, and which has been acknowledged by the Karnataka High Court also. You know that this was challenged in the Karnataka High Court, and Karnataka High Court acknowledges the references made by the Supreme Court, which is neither the Constitution nor the law prescribes the procedure or method of identification of backward classes. Nor is it possible or advisable for the court to lay down any such procedure or method. It must be left to the authority appointed to identify. It can adopt such method or procedure as it thinks convenient, and so long, this is important, and so long as its survey covers the entire populace, no objection can be taken to it. This is paragraph 858. Paragraph 782 of the Mandal judgment says, coming back to the question of the identification, the fact remains that one has to begin somewhere with some group, some class or some section. There is no set or recognized method. There is no law or other statutory instrument prescribing the methodology. The ultimate idea, this is the again point, the ultimate idea is to survey the entire populace. This has time and again emphasized by the Supreme Court, and High Court acknowledges that. And the point is that in 2014, Karnataka government made an amendment to the Karnataka Backward Classes Commission Act 1995, conducting the survey of the whole entire populace. This is a law, and this was questioned in the High Court, and that was pending. There was no stay order, and the next hearing of that thing is coming in December. In spite of all this, Karnataka High Court made a great blunder in converting this as to a survey, not census, because the whole question came before them: what is the law which empowers the state to conduct the survey? There was no law. There is a law which is questioned in court of law. When there is no stay order, that law should be, should have been insisted. But that was a great blunder by the High Court, and it said that only the census can command the people and the citizenry of this country to give the answers to the enumerator, whereas the survey cannot seek that question. This has come as a great boon to the upper caste forces, the dominant caste, and the whole thing is really go to dance, because you cannot actually quantify the figures. Finally, the ultimate aim is to quantify the reservation, quota. In guys and the upper caste would say that we did not cooperate. So this should be further, a legal battle should go against that, because Supreme Court has empowered the entire populace. That is the law. When there is no law, Supreme Court order is given. Supreme Court says that the entire populace. So Narayana is anti-national.
Okay, ಈಗ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇದೆ. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿಗೆ
Sir, I just want clarification on that.
Yeah, education. Questions and then we'll go.
Educational and the educational and economic part. Can you please explain?
Yes.
Any more?
Yeah.
Men can ask?
No, wait. After that, I'll.
I have one question. I don't know how relevant or contextual it is. But when we take this as a socio-economic survey, as it is said, we have to also take the context of the changes that have been happening over the last 10 years. You know, as long as the surveys have been mooted and conducted and going on, we have to also take the background of the socio-economic changes or the context in which it is happening. Because if you see over the last 10 years or 10, 12, 20 years, the context in the market changing has been happening. And if you say it's a socio-economic survey, then in this changes of the market, in globalization also, there have been changes in the class structure and the caste structure also. There have been castes who have entered into certain class, and there has been this kind of a. So my question is related to the fact that how do we weave into this? Because there has been a change in the secular status of communities, but not a change in the ritual status. Like in the secular status, I mean economically, there has been Dalits or people from the other classes who have become, say, police commissioners. But as a ritual status, their status never changed in terms of marriage, in terms of social mobility, in all these contexts. So in the context of all this, and the changes have happened over the last 20 years, but the survey has been going on and the reports have been found. So when these contexts are not taken into account, how do you call this authentic? How do you call this socio-economic survey authentic?
ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ಸರ್.
ಇದು ಮೂರು ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡೋಣ ಆಮೇಲೆ
ಎನಿವನ್ ಕೆನ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್. ಇವಾಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಂಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ರಿಲಿಜಿಯಸ್ ಮೈನಾರಿಟೀಸ್ ಕೂಡ BC ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಹೌ ಡು ವಿ ಡಿವೋರ್ಸ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ರಿಲಿಜನ್? ಯಾಕೆಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಗೀತಾ ಇಸ್ ರೇಸಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಸಿಮಿಲರ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್. ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿದ್ರು ಕೂಡ ಸೋಷಿಯಲಿ ಸ್ಟಿಗ್ಮಾ ಏನಿದೆ, ಯೂಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್, ನನಗೆ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಟಿಗ್ಮಟೈಸೇಷನ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಅಥವಾ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ಲೂಷನ್ ಏನಿದೆ ಅದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಹೇಗೆ ಡಿಟ್ಯಾಚ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ? ಸೊ ಈ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ಲೂಷನ್ ಕಾರಣದಿಂದನೇ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಕೂಡ ಸಿಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿಗೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ನನ್ನ ಅನಿಸಿಕೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ನೀನು ಆಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಇವಾಗ ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ 3B ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ಸು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗರು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ್ಸು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ ಕ್ಲೇಮಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಸೀಟ್ ಆನ್ 3B ಫಾರ್ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್. ಇದು ಅಸಾಧ್ಯನ. ಸೊ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಬಿ ದಿಸ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಟ್ಯಾಚ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾನು
This is a question, I mean, partly on ignorance because I'm new to Bangalore and Karnataka. There's been talk about the failure of the media. But I want to just mark what sounds to me like the failure of academics. This is also a question, and I think at least three members on this panel are, I would like to think you're an academic. What has been the face, because having lived in Delhi, and we've had debates around, measuring, counting castes since 2001, it was very much an academic question as well. It was debated in academic institutions, it was denied by sociologists, it was, later on it was positively considered even by economists. And the fact that this happened made a difference. So I'm just asking out of ignorance, what is the situation here? Is it only civil society that has a face? Or do academics who can weigh in terms of research data, in terms of that kind of authority, do they have a voice here? Or do you only have to speak as a political person? Which is, I think, a failure, in my view.
1 minute.
The question is, what is the role and face of academia in this whole issue? Do they have a voice? Does that voice carry authority? Because I do believe that that is an authority that should matter. And I'm sensing that it isn't visible. And I'm curious as to why you position yourself then as a political person rather than as an academic.
Okay. We have to take one more question. 50 questions, then we'll. After this, no more questions. We'll go to the panel, then we'll come back.
Now, iduvargu,
Please introduce yourself.
I'm correct, I'm careerist. Now, all this time, we were having a discussion that the resistance is there, reservation, everything. But when we see the questionnaire in a census, when surveys happened, what questions they ask? Education qualification they ask, and then what is the status of our employed, non-employed, and then how post-graduation, everything neatly it is there. That itself will come out. Every status of class and caste, everything will come out. There is nothing, no wrong questions are there. And here, 2 points is there. One, outstations people, that's what when the survey people have come, they told me, other state people denied to participate in the survey. One thing, why we should give information to the caste. It is not a caste survey. It is our status, socio-economics and educational survey. This is. And after Narayana Murthy's interference, it has become more worst. Third one, whether this caste survey belong to this state or everybody. One thing. And one more thing, they say why we have to give our economic status to that. This all, in spite of all this, I will say, still the questionnaires and the teachers who are coming to take the survey, they know, madam, people are not allowing us to inside. And then, okay, religion illa, caste beda, odidira, okay, ನೀವು ಎಷ್ಟು ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ ಕೊಡಿ. But they have taken our Aadhaar numbers. There everything it will cover, whatever we hide also. But under they said no, they
ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಏನು?
ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈಗ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ, ಆ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಇನ್ಸಫಿಶಿಯೆಂಟ್. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಓದಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಓಕೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನೆಯವರು ಹೆಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಓದಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟಿ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಎಸ್, ಮತ್ತೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇದು ಲೋನ್ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಇದು ನನಗೆ ಒಂದು ಮನೆ ಇದೆ, ಒಂದು ಸೈಟ್ ಇದೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು
ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಏನು ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿ.
ಇದು ಇನ್ಸಫಿಶಿಯೆಂಟ್ ಇದ್ದಾಗ್ಲೂ ಮತ್ತೆ ಇದು ಕ್ಯಾಸ್ಟ್ಗೂ ಬಂದಾಗ್ಲೂ ಇದನ್ನ ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟು ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ವಿ ನೋ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಕ್ವಶನ್.
ಓಕೆ, ವೈ ಇಸ್ ದ ಅಪೋಸಿಷನ್ ದೇರ್ ಅಂತ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ.
Yes.
ಓಕೆ, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ಓಕೆ, ಈ 5 ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ರೆ ಪ್ಯಾನಲಿಸ್ಟ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗೋಣ.
ಅದು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇದು ನಮ್ದು ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೂಲಕನೇ ನಮ್ಮ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಇದ್ರದ್ದು ವರ್ಗ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ತೆಕ್ಕೊಳಕ್ಕಾಗೋದು. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಈ ಇದು ಸರ್ವೆಯನ್ನು ನಡೆಸ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ಇದು ನನ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋಂಗೆ ಸುಪ್ರೀಂ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಅಥವಾ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಇದು 27 ಏನ್ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಇದೆಯೋ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದು ಸ್ಟಿಕನ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಮತ್ತು ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ ಯಾಕೆ ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ? ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸೊಸೈಟಿ, ಅಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಕೂಡ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ಗಳಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಬಿಲೀವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ಮತ್ತು ಅವರು ಒಪ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಕ್ರಿಶ್ಚಿಯನ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ, ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಡೇಟಾ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಯಾಕೆ ಕೆಲವರು ಈಗ ಲಿಂಗಾಯತರೇ ಎತ್ತಿದ್ರು, ನೀವು ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ ಮಾತ್ರ ಬರೀರಿ, ನೀವು ವೀರಶೈವ ಮಾತ್ರ ಬರೀರಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇದೆ. ವೀರಶೈವ ಕುಂಬಾರ ಇದೆ, ವೀರಶೈವ ಕುರುಬ ಇದೆ, ಅವ್ರು ಏನ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಬರಿಬೇಡಿ, ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ ಮಾತ್ರ ಬರೀರಿ. ಯಾಕೆ? ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ದು ಕಾಸ್ಟಿಸ್ಟ್ ಸೊಸೈಟಿನೇ ಅದನ್ನ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್ ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಅದು ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬರುತ್ತೆ? ಒಂದು ಉದ್ಯೋಗದಿಂದ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್ ಇಂದ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಶಿಕ್ಷಣದಿಂದ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನ ಕಂಡು ಹಿಡಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಯಾರಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ನಮ್ಮ ಏನು ಆಯೋಗ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಒಂದು ರೂಲ್ ಇದೆ, ಯಾರು ಮುಂದುವರಿತಾರೋ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಯಾರು ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿದ್ದು ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಸೇರಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ 10 ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೊಂದ್ಸರಿ ಕಂಪಲ್ಸರಿ ಸರ್ವೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಂಪ್ರೂವ್ ಆಗಿರೋರ್ನ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಇದು ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಆಗಿರೋದು 2015 ಯಾಕೆ ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗರು ಮತ್ತೆ ಲಿಂಗಾಯತರಿಗೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಬಿಟ್ಕೊಡಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅವರು ಆದ್ರೆ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಅಪ್ ಅಬೌವ್ ದ ಅದರ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್. ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇರೋರು. ನಾನೊಂದು ಕುಂಚಿಬರೂರು ಅಂತ ಮಾಡಿದೆ, ಅವರು ಒಂದು ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರು ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಅಟೆಂಡರ್ ಪೋಸ್ಟ್ ಇವಾಗ 8th ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡರ್ಡ್ ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, 10th ಏನೋ. ಸೊ ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಪೋಸ್ಟ್ ಸಿಗದೆ ಇರೋ ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಮೈನಾರಿಟಿ ನೀವು ಯಾಕೆ ಅಪ್ಪರ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಬಿಟ್ಕೊಡೋದಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಪೋಸ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೀವು ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅವರ ಸ್ಥಾನಗಳನ್ನ ಕಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಳ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈಗ ನಾವು KS ಪೋಸ್ಟ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕಳ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆ ಯಜಮಾನಿಯನ್ನು ಕಳ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವ. ಮತ್ತಿವತ್ತು ನೋಡ್ರಿ IAS ಲಿಂಗಾಯಟ್ಸ್ ಒಂದು ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಇದೆ, IAS ಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಿನ್ ಒಂದು ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ IAS ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ, KS ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಇದೆ, ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಅಸೋಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ನೂ ಇದೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಇವಾಗ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಹೇಗೆ ಒಂದು ಫೋಲ್ಡ್ಗೆ 16 ಫೋಲ್ಡ್. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ತೆಗಿಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಈ ಬ್ಯಾರಿಯರ್ನ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಗಿರೋದು ಒಂದೇ ಸೋಶಿಯೋ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಸರ್ವೆ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸೋಶಿಯೋ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಸರ್ವೆ, ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಸರ್ವೆಯಿಂದ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕ್ರೀಮಿ ಲೇಯರ್ ಅಂತ ತಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈಗ 8 lakhs ಇದ್ರೆ ಅವರು ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್. ಮೈ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಇಸ್ 8 lakhs, ಐ ಕೆನಾಟ್. ಅದು 8,000 ಇದ್ದಿತ್ತು, ಈಗ ಇನ್ನು 11 ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಸರ್. ಈಗ ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರಿ 1 ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕ್ಯಾಟಗರಿ 1 ಗಿಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಏನು ಕ್ರಿಮಿಲೇಯರ್ ಮಿಕ್ಕ ಎಲ್ಲ ಜಾತಿಗಳಿಗೂ ಕ್ರಿಮಿಲೇಯರ್ ಇದೆ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. ಆದರೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಎಲ್ಲದನ್ನು ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋರು ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಮಗೆ ಸಾವಿರಾರು ಜನ ಉದಾಹರಣೆ ನಾನೇ ನೋಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಅವರು ಜಾಬ್ ಇದ್ರು ಜಾಬ್ ತೋರಿಸದೆ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸರ್ಟಿಫಿಕೇಟ್ ಪಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈ ತರ ಮುರಿಯೋರು ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸವಲತ್ತು ಸಿಕ್ಕುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನು ತಪ್ಪು ಬಂದವರಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ ಅಗಸ ಅಂತಿದ್ರು ಅಗಸ ಬರ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ ಅಗಸ ಕೊಟ್ಟೋರಿಗೆ ಅಗಸ ಕೊಡಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಲ್ಲ ನಾನು. ಆದರೆ ಅಗಸರಿಗೆ ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಇರುವಂತ ಏನು ಸ್ಟಿಗ್ಮಾ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನ ಕಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಮಾತ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು. ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ ಆಗಿ ಅವ್ರು ಒಂಚೂರು ಕಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್, ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್ ಅಂತ. ಪ್ರತಿ ವ್ಯಕ್ತಿಗೂ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇವತ್ತಿಗೂ ನೀವು ಜಾತಿ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಮನೆ ಹಾಕೋ ಅಂತ ಭಾರತದ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ ಆಗದಿಂದ. ಸೊ ಆ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸರ್ವೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನು ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕ ಮೇಲ್ ಏನ್ ಅಪ್ವರ್ಡ್ನೆಸ್ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಗುರುತಿಸಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಸರ್ವೆ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಅಷ್ಟಲ್ಲದೆ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಒಂದು ಮಾತು ಕೇಳಿದ್ರು, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅಕಾಡೆಮಿಕ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ 3 ಜನ ಆಕ್ಟಿವಿಷಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದೀರಿ, ನೀವೇನು ಈ ಸರ್ವೆಗೆ ರಿಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಿ? ಮೇಡಮ್ ಇವಾಗ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ನೋ ಎನಿ ಲಿಬರ್ಟಿ ಆರ್ ಅಟಾನಮಿ ಟು discuss these things in a university. So I am retired now, I can speak anything. Here and I can speak anything. I don't know private universities. Narayana sir
It's the same, it's the same. I cannot disclose. He cannot disclose anything.
They say critical analysis. Yes, maybe they can. Andre, ಈಗ 25-30 years back, not this much of restrictions. Now there is a restrictions. One report that's already women are facing anemia ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಡೇಟಾ ತೆಗೆದು ಒಂದು ಅನಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹಾಕಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣವೇ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ದೇ ಡಿಡ್, ವಿಮೆನ್ಸ್ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಅನಿಮಿಯಾ. It was like this. That the government asked me, what is the data? See, ನಾನು ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವ್ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಮಾಡಿದ ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ ಒಂದು ಇದನ್ನ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ನಾನು 33.5% ಆಫ್ ದ ವುಮೆನ್ ಆರ್ ಅನಿಮಿಕ್ ಅಂತ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇನ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಏರಿಯಾ all women's university students are anemic. So government is little the measures taken by the administration. So media right control. So these are the things happening. They miswrote the things. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವ ಟೀಚರ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಇದಲ್ಲ. They won't write because all these sort of problems rises. We have to ready to substantiate and attacks will become from the physics and register and many things. So this is very difficult in academia also to face many questions.
ಅದಕ್ಕೇನೆ ಅವ್ರು ಕೇಳಿದ್ದು ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಒತ್ತಡಗಳು ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣಗಳು ಇದ್ರೂನು ಅಕಾಡೆಮಿಕ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಇದೆಯಲ್ವಾ, ಅದನ್ನ ನಿರ್ವಹಿಸೋದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಫೇಲ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ
ಫೇಲ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದೀಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್.
Of course, Professor Narayana is more well equipped to answer most of the questions here. Geeta madam, you are right. See, our society, as we all know, is atomized society, madam, isn't it? How much ever we talk of unity, at the end of the day, it's atomic, atomized society. So, in the name of caste, class, gender, religion, and what all not we have created for ourselves, we are hierarchical. Had it been only atomized, we could have still understood, but on top of that, we are hierarchical. It's stratified. Many works are quite profound. The sociological writings very well claim that the ladder, we cannot move up and down the ladder. Okay, so the positions are fixed here. So therefore, even with your education, even with your economic status, even you become a bureaucrat, you may even become, I would like to say, Chief Secretary of the State also. Though I don't know whether you will become or not. Yes, very much, madam. Thank you, madam. Chief Justice of India also. okay, or even the president of our country also, okay, the caste, you cannot take away from, the identity. The first thing they will search is what is the caste which XYZ belongs to. Okay, so therefore, politically, I think that's why Ambedkar statement comes into the very foreplay. We are constitutionally or legally, we are getting into an India where we are equal, but socially, economically, and certainly in all other aspects we are unequal. So that should say many things, madam. Even in the changing context, okay, the situations are pretty much same, madam. Maybe up and down here and there could be changes. And second, madam, with regard to the census, generally they use parameters such as social, economic, political. Though in these political questions were not there in any of these 60 questions, but generally when we say it, they say these are the parameters: social, educational, and economic. And some of us academicians, when we take, we also add political factors, or these days psychological, or from women's perspective. People are adding these adjectives for the to be clear with the framework of the study, madam. Okay, so as such, I think these surveys, they generally will state uses, it says social and educational, to be at the much more safer side, not to make it more political. Madam, academia, I don't have to say again, pretty much it's the same case with Bangalore also. Of course, you are right, as an academician, we should have had that force or a significant proportion of it. But again, most of the, as Madam has said, from the working in a government institute, state, sponsored institute, if there only so much of regulations are there, then you can imagine people like us working in private universities or private research centers or etc. Hardly we have autonomy. Even if it is there, very restrictive spaces are there. So therefore, we seek these civil societies, alternative forces, okay, or faith-based organizations, civil-based organizations, etc. Okay, to take up these issues, or some like-minded, media houses, if I may say. They are the people who give spaces for these kinds of discussions. Thank you.
ಪ್ರೈವೇಟ್ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟೀಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಇದೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ. ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಬ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಮೂರು ಮೇನ್ ಕಾಸ್ಟಿನ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸ್ ಇರೋದು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ನಾನು ಈ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಕನ್ಸಲ್ಸ್ನ ಒಬ್ಬ ಲಿಂಗಾಯತ್ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದ್ರ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟರೆ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋರು ಅದ್ರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ವಿರುದ್ಧವಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಇವನ್ ಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಣ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸ್ ಯಾವುದಿದೆ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ ಮೈನಾರಿಟಿ ಕೆಲವು ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಅವ್ರ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ. ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್. ಕಾಲೇಜಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋರಾಗಬಹುದು ಅಥವಾ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿಲಿ. ಯಾಕೆ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ಗಳು 30 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಬಂಡಾಯ ಚಳವಳಿ ನಡೆಸಿ ಊರೆಲ್ಲ ಕೂಗಾಡಿದ ಮೇಷ್ಟ್ರುಗಳು ಯಾಕೆ ಮೌನವಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಕೇಳಬೇಕು. ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಆ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದವರು. ಈಗ ಯಾಕೆ ಮೌನಗೊಳಿಸಲಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಮೆನಿ ವೈಸ್ ಚಾನ್ಸಲರ್ ಯಾವ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಇಂದ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ, who are ruling the universities. From political pressures only they come into the universities and opposition. So registrars ಆಗ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ವೈಸ್ ಚಾನ್ಸಲರ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಇದೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ? ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್. ಮತ್ತೆ ವೈಸ್ ಚಾನ್ಸಲರ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ಗೂ ಒಂದು ಫ್ರೀಡಮ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರಾ? ನೋ, ದೇ ನೆವರ್ give the
so you can't write in the newspaper.
I think you're asking the wrong question. The constitutional mandate to carry out the survey is on the Backward Classes Commission and on the state government. The state government has a responsibility to make available all the resources to the Backward Classes Commission to do this survey. And this includes creating awareness about this mandate itself, which the commission did not do this time around. Last time in 2015, the commission had extensive meetings and all of that and created awareness, and that's why then when the survey was being done, at least I don't think, I think like other panelists or anybody else can possibly point it out.
Hardly any compromise.
Yeah.
And 94%
coverage. So, the state government should have made available all the resources to the commission, and the commission should have done this. So the commission bears responsibility, constitutional responsibility, to carry this exercise out in the spirit of the constitution. It is not for academics to be filling in the gap and scrambling around civil society groups to be running around organizing awareness camps. No.
No, I think that's fine. We can.
Agreed. See, on a very basic level, I agree with you. It is all of our responsibilities as citizens of this country to protect the constitution and thereby ourselves and fellow citizens. But the onus of responsibility clearly lies on the state government and the backward classes commission, which they failed to do very badly, very badly.
ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ. 5 crores 98 lakhs 14,942 population cover ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಈ ಸರ್ವೆ.
This survey.
No. This survey is going on.
Previous
Professor Narayana to answer the question.
Okay, so I think our other questions have been answered. There's only one question that I need to answer, which is
No, you can also answer this question. Give your own answer.
Which is why have I positioned myself as a political activist here rather than an academic? I can give a simple answer and I can give a nuanced answer. My simple answer is that from Monday to Friday I am an academic.
That's it.
And my nuanced answer is that. Sorry. So my nuanced answer is that, well, academicians have a role in this, and that role is a political role. And let me repeat, that role is a political role for academicians. Because, the overall scenario today around this survey is such that no amount of academic rigor and no amount of legal reasoning is not going to save this. Only playing the right kind of politics will save the survey from going the same way as the first one. Okay, so that is the position that academicians will have to take according to me. Yes. I'll tell you why I have said what I have said. Now, the first survey is gone. It's dumb. The sovereign government has taken decision that we are not going to use it. Nobody can do anything about it. Let us accept it. Now we can, we can argue whether they have done the right thing or wrong thing. Maybe they have done the wrong thing. Fine. Government sometimes do wrong things, okay, and we have to accept it. And most of the time they do wrong things. Yes. So there's no way we can salvage it. So now the only responsibility that we have as civil society, as academicians, as right-thinking people in this state is that we have to ensure that the second survey does not end up with the same fate as the first one. And there is a reason for that. What is the reason? The reason is something that Sunandamma sir has said, which is even in its most imperfect form, okay, even in its most imperfect form, the survey that is going to be completed, whenever it is going to be completed, is better than the data set on which current policies are relied upon.
Yes.
Okay, which is something collected in the year 1931, right, by the British government. So, and the second backward classes commission in Karnataka is called a Venkateswamy commission, did collect data extensively, but that was not accepted at all in the sense. Okay, so that again was done. So, if you look into this, is a long story, and this is a story to be narrated. In our region, we say this is a story which requires 7 nights and 7 days. So this requires 7 days and 7 nights to unravel every nuance involved in it. And unless this every nuance is brought out, the story is incomplete. But again, the simple thing that I can say is that even in its most imperfect form, the findings of the survey that is going to be released whenever it is going to be released should be taken as better than what is available to the government for policy making right now. Therefore, we have a responsibility to save this from going down the drain. So that's the only responsibility I have taken upon myself as an academic, and there I have to take a political role. I have to play a political role. Now, there's a logical reasoning also behind what I am saying. It's not just that this is even if it is imperfect, we should accept it. There is something about it which we have to accept. Which is okay, some castes have not given their details. Okay, and Some of them have given some kind of details, but not all kinds of details. But, if it is a survey, this is a good sample. Am I right, Rajendra? This is a good sample. It's going to be a good sample, right? And when it is a good sample, from the sample findings, you can always extrapolate it to the entire population. Now let us say that, of the 2 lakh or 3 lakh Brahmin families in this state, let us say 3,000 of them have given. Now can we extrapolate it, for the entire Brahmin population? I do not know whether it may be skewed, I'm not too sure. But, whatever we are going to collect is one, it's a sample, and that sample can be extrapolated scientifically. Okay, that's one. And second, with regard to why we ask economic information when the survey is social and education, right? I do not know, again, the Supreme Court judgment which Shoshandar sir has quoted as an answer to that. Because there's no way how do you assess the backwardness of the people. Remember, there are so many problems here right from the nomenclature. OBC, what does OBC stand for? OBC does not stand for other backward castes. It stands for other backward classes. Okay, yeah. Now Supreme Court right from the day one has been interpreting this class, whether class is caste is class, and how do you assess class status, etc., etc. This remains unresolved. So now, although it is called social and educational backwardness, right? Now, in order to assess the social backwardness, beyond caste, what do you have? So, I think one of the indicators there can be the inequality. What is the extent to which you are unequal in relation to the rest? Okay, and for that you need economic data. This is my way of interpreting. But as Anisha said, neither the government nor the commission has got any explanation for that. But this is how the surveys have conducted. And Rajan and maybe Mr. Deshpande may have something to add to this.
No, I think just on that, what typically would be done is that we will create some kind of an index. An index is some number which is going to be between, let's say, 0 to 100. So higher the number, the more backward you are. Now to arrive at a number like that, you need to combine these social, economic, educational, various factors, and each factor would be given a weightage. To say that if you are coming from a certain economic background, you will get certain weightage. So think of it like adding weightage to different factors, combining them to come up with one number. So if you don't have economic information, you will not be able to create a good index. So that's why they're collecting this economic index. In fact,
more comprehensive.
More comprehensive. In fact, that's how many indices in India are, even consumer price index, which helps you to calculate inflation, etc. It's combining, giving weightage to different consumer products in the dynamic. So that's what. Can I just add one quick point? So on this extrapolation bit, I think, I agree that an imperfect measurement is better than nothing. And I think one way to question that is, you have all these national surveys, whether it is periodic labor force survey or national family health survey. Each of these surveys are not exhaustive. They are based on a sample. So they are based on a sample, and based on a sample, you are making a claim about a larger population. And in fact, the whole theory of sampling had its India's contribution to the world. In the 1950s, it was developed. So I think when we are claiming that this is unscientific and being done, can be, obviously, again, even retrospective would be not still salvage a lot of things doing that. So that's my limited point.
Yeah. So that is where we have to throw our weight behind. So, again, it's the claim for being unscientific, saying that we have been not counted. Every exam an attempt was made to help them by the government. They should organize themselves. and this is the most disparate group in the population, right? Now, people like us, what we are trying to do is to try to organize them and make them stand solidly behind the sun.
ಒಂದೇ ಒಂದು ಅಂಶ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಹೇಳಬೇಕು. ನಾವು ಯಾಕೆ ಸೋಷಿಯಲಿ ಎಜುಕೇಶನಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಸಂವಿಧಾನದ ಅನುಚ್ಛೇದ 15(4) ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿರೋದು ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕವಾಗಿ ಮತ್ತು ಶೈಕ್ಷಣಿಕವಾಗಿ ಹಿಂದುಳಿದ ವರ್ಗಗಳಿಗೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ವಿಶೇಷ ಯೋಜನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ರೂಟ್. ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 15(4) says for those classes which are socially and educationally backward, the government can take special welfare measures. So whether you look at reservation and other measures, it comes because somebody is socially and educationally backward, and to discuss socially, like I said, other than caste, you have to say economics, and it could be any number of things. But 15(4), 16(4) is for public employment only, and so that's why 15(4) also is.
Yeah. One last point. What is that we need here? We need two things. One, what is the representation of various caste and communities in government employment? And that information is not to be taken from this survey, okay? And that has to be collected separately. Even if it comes from the survey, it is not enough. You have to collect it separately from the government. What is the representation of various caste and community in politics? Again, that is to come from somewhere else, not from this. And here, who has got what in economic terms, right? That is the main thing. Who wants how much land, and who is in what kind of private employment, who wants how much of capital, this kind of thing. And on this part, I think we have to make a lot of extrapolation, and that part of the survey will never be perfect.
Can I just add one point?
Yeah, you can add one point. Then Zia had a question, and she was from the survey.
ನಾವು ಎಷ್ಟೇ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ಅನ್ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ವರ್ಷಗಟ್ಟಲೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡೋದೇನು, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಲಿಂಗಾಯತರಿಗೆ ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗರಿಗೆ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಸಿಕ್ತು, ಅದು ಯಾವ ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ಯಾವ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ರೆಕಮೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಗಮನದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ವೆನ್ ಇಟ್ ಫೈನಲಿ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಡೌನ್ ಟು ಇಟ್, ದ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಡೂ ವಾಟ್ ಇಟ್ ವಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಟು ಡೂ, ಅಂಡ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಫೋರ್ಸ್ ದ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಟು accept the recommendations of the commission. Even with internal reservation, we have seen the same thing happen. ಈಗ 80s ಇಂದ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ like the secondary data that Professor Narayana is talking about, that actually exists in the Chinnapaswamy Commission report, which uses the data of the Venkataswamy Commission report. So you actually do know who has how much political representation, which community has how much educational access to education, to government jobs, Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D jobs. Land related data I'm not entirely sure, madam, but this information we do know. And it is outdated, yes. But can you make a case that Lingayats, Vokaligas and Brahmins have declined from that level? That is something that I suppose sociologists would plot. Even without data, I think we can probably say that it is unlikely to happen.
ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಡೇಟಾ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಎವ್ರಿ ಏನು ಹೈಯರ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಮಿಡಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಬೇಸ್ಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀಟಾಗಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಕೋತಾರೆ. ಡೇಟಾ ಇದೆ ಯಾರ್ದ್ರ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಡೇಟಾ ಇದೆ. ಇರ್ಲಿ ಎವ್ರಿ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಸೊ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೋಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಯಾರಿದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಎತ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು 10% ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕಲ್ ಇದು ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ಈ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಯಾರು ಎತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಕೂಡ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಶನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇರೋ ಆ 10% ಅವ್ರ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ನೆಸ್ ಇಂದ ಕ್ಲೈಮ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಕೊಟ್ಟಾಗ ನಮಗೆ ನೇರವಾಗಿ ಯಾರು ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಸೊ ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಎಷ್ಟಿದೆ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತು ಎಷ್ಟು ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. ಮತ್ತೆ 50% ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಎಷ್ಟು ಶೇರ್ ಇದೆ ಅದ್ರ ಡೇಟಾ ಸಿಕ್ಕತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸರ್ವೆಯಿಂದ. ಅದು 50% ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ 40 ಎಬೋವ್ ಅವ್ರದ್ದೇ ಇದೆ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್. ಈ 10% ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟರು, ಅವಾಗ ಯಾರು ಮಾತಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕೆ? ಸೊ ಇದೆಲ್ಲನೂ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು, ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ನ ತುಂಬಾ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ರೀತಿಯಿಂದ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಕಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂದ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇಂದ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಭೇಟಿ ಆಗೋಕ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಎಜುಕೇಶನ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ಸ್ ಇಂದ ನಾವು ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸಾಂಪ್ರದಾಯಿಕ ಉದ್ಯೋಗಗಳಿಂದ ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ನೀವ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಸಾಂಪ್ರದಾಯಿಕ ಉದ್ಯೋಗ ಅಂತ. ಮೇಡಮ್ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರು. 80% animal husbandry done by the women. ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪಶುಸಂಗೋಪನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ 80% ಕೆಲಸನ ಹೆಣ್ಣು ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಮಾಡುದು. ಸೊ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಜಾತಿ ಆಧಾರನೇ ಆಯ್ತು. ಪಶುಸಂಗೋಪಕರು ಯಾರು? ಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಣರು ಸಾಕ್ತಾರ ಹಸು, ಅನಿಮಲ್ ಕುರುಬರು, ಕೊಲ್ಲರು ಮತ್ತೆ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಲಾರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಅವರು ಕೂಡ ಬೇರೆಯವ್ರನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮೇಯಿಸ್ತಾರೆ, ಅವ್ರ ಮೇಯಿಸಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ 80% women done by all those women. So ಬುಟ್ಟಿ ಎಳೆಯೋದು ಯಾರು? ಆ ಮಡಿಕೆ ಮಾಡೋದು ಯಾರು? ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಕೆಲಸಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಆಲ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಡನ್ ಬೈ ವಿಮೆನ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ, ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ವರ್ಕ್ಸ್. ಬಟ್ ನೀವು ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಡೇಟಾದಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಎಂಟ್ರಿ ಮಾಡಿ ನಮ್ಮ ವರ್ಕ್ನ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕುಟುಂಬದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಆದಾಯ ಎಷ್ಟಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಾನು ಅಡಿಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಅಡಿಗೆ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಅವಳು ಹೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ 10,000 ನನಗೆ ಸಂಬಳ ಅಂತ. ನಾನು ಈಗ ನನ್ನ 10,000 ಹೌಸ್ ವೈಫ್ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾ ಬೇಡ? ಹೂ ಶುಡ್ ಸೇ? ಸೊ ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಸಿವ್ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ನಿಜವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೇಷನ್ ಆಸ್ತಿ ಯಾರು ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಸೊ ಆಲ್ ದೀಸ್ ಮೆನಿ ಅದರ್ ಜೆಂಡರ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಬಟ್ ಈ ಸರ್ವೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಜೆಂಡರ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂನ ಮೇನ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ನೂ ನಾವು ಬಹಳ ಪ್ರಿಲಿಮಿನರಿ ಆಗಿ ಈ ಡೇಟಾನ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದೀವಿ. ನಮ್ದು ಪರ್ಸನಲ್ ಪಾಲಿಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡು ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಯಾರು ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಹೆಣ್ಮಕ್ಳು ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು. ನಮ್ಗೆ 33% ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟೆಡ್ ಬಜೆಟ್, ಜೆಂಡರ್ ಬಜೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಕಾಯ್ದೆ ಆಗಿದೆ 1984. ಆ ಕಾಯ್ದೆ ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳಕ್ಕಾಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ವೇರ್ ವಿ ಆರ್.
ಸೊ ಸಿಆರ್ ಅವ್ರ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಶಿವಸುಂದರ್ ಸರ್ ಒಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ.
My question is to Narayana sir. Sir, Tamil Nadu has 69% reservations. So why can't Karnataka or other states do that? And Kerala specifically has 12% reservations for OBC Muslims. What exactly is stopping the Karnataka government here? Political will or pressure from the community? Number one. That's the question to you. I don't want everyone to answer. I want you to answer. Second is to Azhar sir. What kind of reservation Muslims get under this 4% bracket that you're talking about? I might be naive in this, but I think it's only on the contracts for the public. I think you're talking about category 117 subcaste of Muslims, Patharkod and others, and in category 2A you have 19. That has, you can explain me that. My third question to you is again, sir, what is the guarantee that the final data announced by this survey that we are talking will be transparent? I am of the view, and I may be wrong, that Muslims today are politically powerless and we are the biggest untouchables in the society because of my political powerlessness. Will the government try to hide that? I think yes. If it tries to do that, what do we do? The question to this again, addition to this is that if the data actually shows that we are the worst in terms of socio-economic and the other parameters we are looking at, can more of the subcaste or class in Muslims from category 2B be put into 2A and class category 1? Will that be done? And if that can be done, what can be the process? Do we need a political movement for this or do we go to the courts? So that's to others.
How many questions is that? Come on, it's an entire.
Okay, I will correct them individually. I have more questions.
Other categories.
There was point. What we are discussing is about not distribution of resources, redistribution of the resources. Redistribution ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇರೋದ್ರ ಕಿತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಇಲ್ಲಿರೋರು ಕೊಡೋದು. This is a political process. It's a political matter. What happened even in the minimal resources about the internal reservation of the Dalit community? What recently happened, we have witnessed. The political will of the government has completely compromised when it comes to the most backward and most upwards. In fact, in Karnataka is
DNTs have been.
ಅದೇ ಇದೆ, ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಆನ್ ದಟ್ ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಬೀನ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ ಇದ್ದವ್ರನ್ನ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಫಾರ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಅನ್ನೋರ ಜೊತೆ ಕ್ಲಬ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದು ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ರೀಸನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ, ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಕಂಪಲ್ಷನ್. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಎ ಪಾಲಿಟಿಕ್ಸ್, ಇಟ್ ನೀಡ್ಸ್ ಎ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್. ಹಿಸ್ಟಾರಿಕಲಿ ಸ್ಪೀಕಿಂಗ್, ನಾರಾಯಣ ಅವರು ಅದನ್ನು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಪ್ರಗತಿಪರವಾದಂತಹ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ನ್ಯಾಯದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕಾಳಜಿ ಇದ್ದಂಥ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ದೇವರಾಜ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾನೂರು ಕಮಿಟಿ ಕೂಡ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಬಟ್ ದೇವರಾಜರ ಹಾವನೂರು ಕಮಿಟಿ ಕೂಡ, ಹಾವನೂರು ಸಮಿತಿ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಮರ ವಿಷಯದಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಅನ್ಯಾಯ ಮಾಡಿತು, ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಅದನ್ನು ಸರಿ ಮಾಡಿತು. ಅದನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಟಂತೆ ಲಿಂಗಾಯತು ಮತ್ತು ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗರ ವಿಷಯ ಬಂದಾಗ ಅನೀಶಾ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ ವಿಷಯ ಬಹಳ ಸ್ಪಷ್ಟವಾಗಿ ಇದು ಹೇಳಿರೋದೇ ಏನು ಮ್ಯಾಂಡೇಟು, ದೋಸ್ ಹೂ ಆರ್ ಫಾರ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ಲೂಡೆಡ್ ಸೊ ದಟ್ ದೋಸ್ ಹೂ ಆರ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಅಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗೆಟ್ ದಿ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್. ಅದು ಯಾವತ್ತೂ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಬರೀ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲ, ಇತಿಹಾಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವತ್ತೂ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದು ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಪವರ್ಫುಲ್ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ನಮಗಿರೋದು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಬಿಜೆಪಿ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾತಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ಡೈನಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ದಿ ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್? ಒಂದ್ ಕಡೆ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಗಣತಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬರ್ತಾರೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಕಾಂಪ್ರಮೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊತಾರೆ. ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಫಾಲೋಡ್ ದಿ ಇಂಟರ್ನಲ್ ರಿಸರ್ವೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಎಸ್ ಸಿ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟೀಸ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಹೈಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ injustice. That is because of the internal dynamic of this party, and that is Congress party. ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಹತ್ರನೂ ಏನಾದರೂ ಒಳ್ಳೇದು ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಬಲವಾದಂಥ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇದ್ರೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಟಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಪಾಲಿಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ರೀಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್. ಅದು ಸಣ್ಣದು, ಜಾಸ್ತಿನೂ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಸೇರಿ 7 ಲಕ್ಷ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಉದ್ಯೋಗ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ದಲಿತರು ಸಿಗ್ತಿರೋದೇ 6
ಲಕ್ಷಕ್ಕಿಂತ
ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಇದೆ. ಮತ್ತು ನಾವು 7.5 ಕೋಟಿ ಜನ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. 7.5 ಕೋಟಿ ಜನರಲ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಟಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ 1% ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್. 1% ಆಫ್ ದಿ population will get the benefit if it is properly distributed. What about the social justice of other 99%? That should happen only by resource distribution, land, asset ಇತ್ಯಾದಿ. ಅದಾಗಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಇದನ್ನೇ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇರೋ ಅದನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರ. ಸೊ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಫೈನಲಿ ನನಗನ್ಸುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಸಿವಿಲ್ ಸೊಸೈಟಿ ಅಂತ ಮಾತಾಡಲ್ಲ, ಸಿವಿಲ್ ಸೊಸೈಟಿ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಸೊಸೈಟಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಬಹಳ ಬಲವಾದ ಆನ್ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಜಸ್ಟಿಸ್ ಒಂದು ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ ನೆಚ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ 2027ಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಸೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಯಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಕ್ಯಾಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂತ ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಡ್ಲೇಬೇಕು. ಇದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಅದು ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇರೋರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಇದರ ಭವಿಷ್ಯ ಅಷ್ಟು ಗಟ್ಟಿ ಇದೆ. ಇದರ ಭವಿಷ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾದರೂ ಒಳ್ಳೇದಾಗಬೇಕಂದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಚಳವಳಿ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ
ನಾನು ಒಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಸರ್ ಹೇಳಿದಂಗೆ 5.88 lakh jobs
take this question and respond to Zia sir and everything, because we have to wind up this one. Questions?
Actually, when I heard Anisha mention about forced government, that's what was in my mind. Because after Pranayamurthy and open the can of worms about their privilege and that, and they should be kept out of it, and they would need to be in the business. I was just thinking, I unfortunately possibly have a lot of friends who are also from privileged class, also very wealthy, I mean assets wise, so the economic part of it also affects them. And a lot of them would feel the same way. I'm convinced, and you mentioned this also. They basically don't want, it's not about the caste, it's more about they would not want their assets and wealth to be known. So they would refuse to reveal that. So that's why I feel that what would the government do, as I was just mentioning about our civil society groups, etc., to make it mandated that, I mean, it should be like a forced thing or bring out some order, in fact, to say that every single citizen in Karnataka has to go through the census and survey, social employment, education, everything. Right?
Respond ಮಾಡಿ ನಂತರ ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ಅವ್ರ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ
So about Tamil Nadu, yeah. So Supreme Court, starting from Balaji case and reiterated in Mandal Commission case, so Indira Savane case, has been insisting that the total quantum of reservation should not exceed 50%. Now, Tamil Nadu, despite that, has been able to give 69 because Tamil Nadu reservation law has been included in the 9th schedule of the Constitution. If a law is got included in the 9th schedule, then it is beyond judicial scrutiny. Okay. Now, how do you get a law included in the 9th schedule? For that, you need a majority parliament. Jayalalitha had some kind of equation with the Azhar government, Asmarov government, and she was able to do that. Now, if government of Karnataka today sends a proposal to increase the reservation beyond 50%, will the BJP government do it? I am not too sure. A lot of things depend upon politics. So that is one thing. Kerala, of course, 12%. In Kerala, I think Muslim population is also almost double that of Karnataka. That's one. And second, in the revised categorization and reallocation of reservation, Muslim reservation has been increased. In the dumped report, in the rejected report, it has been increased to some. It has been increased across the board to everyone. So actually, no one was arguing against. No one was talking about the readjustment of reservation in the report which has been rejected. Everyone was talking about we were not included, our numbers were not to the expected level, etc. So no one was even, the debate did not even come there. So that is the tragedy of it. But more importantly, remember this is a leaked report. It was not officially released. And this question whether they have given sufficient rationale for the decisions that they have taken. Because we do not have in the public domain the entire report, we are not even in a position to say what is the rationale that they have in the report. Only when the entire report is out in the public, we can see what kind of rationale they have given. And I completely agree with what Sundar sir has said. But let me for a moment go back to this decision that Siddaramaiah government had taken to reject the report. Now counter, what is it called? Counter, what is it? If it would have to happen, what is it called? Counterfactually, if Siddaramaiah government were to accept the report, okay, what would have happened for sure was that there would have been severe backlash from Lingayats and Lokalikas. And the government's position would have been very precarious. Okay. And what would not have happened, there would not have been a groundswell of support from the OBCs in support of Siddaramaiah, which only could have saved him. So he was very sure. Politicians are always more intelligent than the collective intelligence of this group. Okay. So he made a calculation. If I support this and implement it, my government is going to be in danger. Will my people support? No, they will not support. Okay, because OBCs today are politically disparate group, and except Prof, other OBCs are predominantly with the BJP, and they will go back. Today, please don't mistake. It's only Narayana and Brahmins who are not cooperating with the survey. Many OBCs themselves are not cooperating. Yeah. So let us be aware of that. That's why I said OBC mobilization around, not just the OBC mobilization, but mobilization of people in general around the idea of social justice is the only answer.
Thank you, sir. This 4% was what is given in this, not just in this report. I mean, latest whatever the reservation is implemented in the state of Karnataka, there is one category called 2B category. That 2B category is outrightly for Muslims, all Muslims, okay, irrespective of whatever your economic positions is. Okay. But this 4% was removed in previous government. They have removed this. Now since they have removed this, sorry, yes, sir. It is not removed. It is in place, but again, as it is still in the subsidized, it is in place. It is in place. But it has been, there is a stay order on it, and therefore this 4% was taken and distributed to two different communities with 2 and 2%.
The BJP government?
Yes, sir. The previous government. And I'm not talking anything in the context of that recent whatever allocation was made for the government contracts. No, that is not. And second, as you said, what will be the guarantee that this report, even after coming, whether they will implement or not? I think much of the answer has been given by Sunandamma sir. There is no guarantee that the recommendations will be implemented, because at the end of the day, this is still the committee has submitted a report. Now it is in the hands of the government what they have to do, what how they take the decision. And of course, there can be transfer of people into different categories. But again, so many caste questions will come in. But again, as you rightly pointed out, there are certain Muslims in part 1 and part 2. Okay, Pravarga 1A and Pravarga 1B in Karnataka. Okay, but again, why they are Muslims are kept because among all the Muslims, these are the people who are much more socially and economically poorer sections of the society. So therefore, some of these people have been put up there. But again, the percentage of the, those Muslims who any in terms of benefit because of the reservation in part 1A and part 1B are very less, are very minimal. Because there are so many other caste and caste groups out there. No, but right now, again, the 2B question is still very political question. We do not know what is it going to happen in upcoming time.
ಅವಕಾಶ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಅನೀಶಾ ಬಂದು ಇಬ್ರು ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಡಿ.
ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೀರಿ ಅಂತ
ರೆಡಿ ಇದೆ
ಇಲ್ಲ ಸೊ ಶಿವಸುಂದರ್ ಸರ್ ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ ಹಾಗೆ ಸೊ ಈ ಇಡೀ ಪೈಪೋಟಿ ಇರೋದು ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೆ 5.88 lakh jobs ಇದೆ. We are missing the complete point here, which is that the driver of the economy, and this is again a failure of the media or a deliberate silence on the part of the media, that the driver of the economy today is the private sector. So this entire fight is happening on the one hand for redistribution of resources, controlled by the government, right? Who controls the economy? It's the private sector, right? And the private sector extends its control also over the government in terms of allocation of more and more privatization, handing over of government hospitals to the private sector. So you cannot discount this fact at all. In fact, there are a lot of groups and nobody gives them any space in the media. Small groups here and there, which make calls from time to time saying implement reservations in the private sector. So what the fight for the reservations is to maintain the political dominance of the Lingas and Uplingas in Karnataka's politics and thereby control of resources. But there is also a larger game where the private sector ensures that it keeps diversity out of its own economy, right? And that is something I think we should not lose sight of.
ಇದು ತುಂಬಾ ಜನ ಮಾತಾಡಿರೋದು ಇನ್ನೂ ಇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ವೆರಿ ಮಚ್ ಇದೊಂದು ಅವಕಾಶ ಕಲ್ಪಿಸಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೆ. ನಾವು ಈ 80ರ ದಶಕದ ಸಮಾನತೆ ಆದರ್ಶ ಹೋರಾಟದ ಭಾಗವಾಗಿ ನನಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ಗಳು ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ನೋವಾಗ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು. ಯಾಕೆ ನೋವಿದೆ ಅಂದಾಗ ಭ್ರಮೆಗಳು ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ ನನಗೆ ಈಗ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಿರೋದು ಒಂದು ನಂಬರಿನ ಪವರು, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಜಾತಿಯ ಪವರು, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸಂಪತ್ತಿನ ಪವರು. ಇದು ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಕಣ್ಣಿಗೆ ರಾಚವಾದ ಸತ್ಯನೇ ಇದೆ. ಅಂಕಿ ಅಂಶಗಳು ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾರು ಬಡವರು, ಯಾರು ಹಿಂದುಳಿದಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಯಾರಿಗೆ ತಿನ್ನೋಕೆ ಇಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ, ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋ ಸತ್ಯ. ಇದನ್ನ ನೀವು ನಂಬರ್ ಮೂಲಕ ಪ್ರೂವ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ನಂಬರ್ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು, ನಾವು ಕೆಲವರು ಜಾತಿ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡೇ ಏನಾದ್ರೂ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಪಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. ಆದ್ರೆ ಸಂಪತ್ತಿರೋರು ಅವ್ರ ಸಂಪತ್ತನ್ನು ಮುಚ್ಕೊಂಡು ಸತ್ಯನ ಮುಚ್ಚಬೇಕು. ಇದು ಬಹುಶಃ ಇದೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಸೇರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಆದರ್ಶನ ಕಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋರಾಟ ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಸಮಯ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ.
ಕೊನೆಯದಾಗಿ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಸುನಂದಮ್ಮ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ, ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ನಾರಾಯಣ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ, ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಅಜರ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ, ಅನೀಶಾ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಸಹ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಸಭೆ ಮುಗಿಸೋಣ. ಜೈ ಭೀಮ್, ಇಂದಿರಾ ಜಿಂದಾಬಾದ್.